नन्दिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्यशिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिनि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिनि शङ्करतोषिनि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनिरोषिनि दितिश्रुतरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, good evening and welcome to the live stream. Today we are going to discuss both Karan Thapar's interview with Romila Thapar, who are just basically brothers and sisters interviewing each other and having a fun time discussing how great the Nehruvian era was, and J. Deepak's debate with Shoma Chaudhury and Sanjay Kirpal, I think his name is. I don't know what Kirpal, I keep forgetting it. So the point is that J. Deepak was basically against a tag team matchup. Shoma Chaudhury was supposed to be doing the anchoring, but she came up with all false premises and fake premises and kept strawmanning J. Deepak and pretending that as if what she's saying is a neutral idea. We can both agree to disagree, but basically J. Deepak is a fascist. That was the tone of her arguments. So anyone willing to vote? Which one should we do first? I would say let's do the J. Deepak one first, but tell me your votes. Romila Thapar, Karan Thapar will be easier to analyze, and J. Deepak will be more complex and deep. So, what's your opinion? Which should we discuss first? Sangramji Chaudhury, hello, Abhay, namaskar, Jai Hind dosto, hello. Tiger Nageshwara Rao is also awesome. It is produced by the producer of the Kashmiri Files. I see. That's something Agarwal, right? Abhishek Agarwal Arts. Okay. One vote for JSD so far. Yep, I watched Vaccine War and Bagha Jatin trailers. Oh, Vaccine War ka trailer aa gaya? Nice. Has anyone watched announcement teaser of Vaccine War? Do the complex one before. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Then we'll have fun and relaxing time with that Karan Thapar, Romila Thapar. Let's start then. Okay, everyone's saying JSD. Yeah, cool. We are all on the same page. This one, so JSD's vocabulary is pretty fast and vociferous, right? So we are not going to watch it at 1.5 or 1.25x, okay? Because Shoma Chaudhury and Kirpal might be slow speakers, but J. Deepak is anyway a machine gun.
Court lawyers on the opposite side of a very important petition agree to come together on a stage in which...
Okay, also debate at all, okay?
I am the moderator. In a way, we are replicating that capacity and that spirit for dialogue across all ideological or all intellectual and value system barriers. Before we started this session, Sai said, as a value system and ideologically, you're possibly closer to Saurabh Kirpal's views. And before beginning, I do want to say, yes, maybe my value system lies there, but I'm deeply privileged to have both of them entrust ignition with this conversation.
No, that's not what you're privileged for. You're privileged because J. Deepak never called you out for calling him a fascist 5 or 6 times. Okay. Binay Singh is saying something interesting. That Rajiv Malhotra is pissed off with Sanjeev Sanyal as Sanjeev never acknowledged Rajiv Malhotra achievement. I mean, how is someone supposed to go around explaining to people, see, this guy has so many achievements? Sanjeev Sanyal has never really spoken about other Indic tubers or Indic authors, so to speak. I think only once he was called to Vikram Sampath's book opening, that's all. He doesn't speak about J. Deepak, Rajiv Malhotra, Sanjay Dixit, anyone. Sanjeev Sanyal, I guess, is too busy for that, and there's no context for this demand that Rajiv Malhotra is making. I'm surprised. This is unfair of Rajiv Malhotra to demand, basically, in my opinion. Kirpal was still centrist. Not centrist. He was left of center because his premises were pretty as we know, liberal. And see, when arguments are liberal, I don't have a problem. His premises were liberal, by which I mean that when he's basing his arguments on those premises, he is pretending as if those premises are all agreed upon, as if we have a consensus on those premises. Like, for example, we are all agreeing that this is a cup, and then we can say if this cup falls down, this may break, and someone might say if this cup falls down, it might go up in the air, like Nuan Chomsky said in the video we reacted, right? That there is no such thing as a 100% true fact. Okay, so but Kirpal is saying that this is a dog, and because it's a dog, we should pet it and not drink coffee from it. Those were the types of arguments Kirpal presented. I'm glad that Rizwan Ahmed talked about Bengal flag incident. Oh, I see. But Rizwan Ahmed is pretty hated by the Pasmanda community. He openly, I think, criticizes or abuses Pasmandas. Shoma Chaudhury got bashed in the comment section. Yeah. In all the many channels uploaded this video, right? And Shoma Chaudhury got bashed in all of them. Please raise the volume of the video. I think this is the full volume. Yeah, this is the full volume, bro. ये शोमा चौधरी का दोष है, हमारा नहीं. Your theme song, Ayagi Nandini, has such an interesting history. Written by Shankaracharya, popularized by Vijayanagar Empire, became pan-India under the patronage of Mysuru Maharaja. I see. And probably got famous in Bengal because of Raghunandan Bhattacharya.
At the heart of it is a petition for same-sex marriage in the Supreme Court. It might seem that this is a case which pertains only to a community of those who find themselves identifying as people who love others of the same sex. But at its heart are many other very, very deep public issues of immense significance. First of all is the question of individual liberty versus community rights. The second is about liberal versus conservatives. Is there space for conservatives in a democracy? Is there space for liberals in a democracy? Who has the power to shift and change a society and nudge it to change its views? Is it the courts? Is it parliament? Or is it people themselves? And ultimately, at its core, is what is the role of a judiciary in a democracy? There are deeply divided views on this. Mostly when you hear about it in the public sphere, it's a lot of name calling. But today we're going to look at the much deeper, and that's why we didn't call it the hot debate. We called it the deep debate. Saurabh Kirpal is a Supreme Court lawyer that identifies as a gay lawyer. He was up for judgeship. There was a huge argument between the courts and government over making him a judge. And one of the key reasons he wasn't made a judge was because he identifies as a gay. So again, there's a big story and an important issue there about identity.
Okay, I had never followed this story about Kirpal getting appealing to be a judge and then getting rejected. What's the story? Do you guys know of it? Was Kirpal really rejected just because he was gay? What explanation was given? And did the government oppose his becoming a judge, or did the other judges, as judges get admitted by knowing other people? So did he not have enough contacts? That's why he was rejected. Or did other judges also say, no, you are gay, we won't let you in? What was the story? Because BJP is not overtly against gay rights. Only I think Indian Church, the missionaries are against gay rights. So what was the story here? Rajiv Malhotra versus Sanjeev Sanyal rivalry isn't an ego issue, it's philosophical. Rajiv Malhotra is internally focused development, like the Chinese Sanyal is broadly for trade and FDI. Yeah, both are important. There's one other difference I know, which is that Rajiv Malhotra has the same view of Rajaram Mohan Roy that people like Jai Deepak I have, that yes, he was wrong to criticize and not allow Sanskrit to come in. Whereas I don't think Sanjeev Sanyal holds that view. But also they disagreed on why Sanjeev Sanyal said that the Sanskrit language fossilized and the Brahmins of the era created insane rules like don't go out of the country, and that stopped the trade one fine morning. And Rajiv Malhotra says that's not the case. Sanjeev Sanyal is giving bullshit liberal history talking points. Now on this, I don't have a view because I have not actually read the primary sources or any significant history books specifically on this topic except Sanjeev Sanyal's. But Sanjeev Sanyal's is pop history, not academic history. Abhijit Chavra has a different viewpoint on this. Abhijit Chavra says that no, that those Brahmins asking people to not cross the Kalapani happened after the Islamic invasion started, because when people were going away as merchants and returning, they were seeing that their villages has been destroyed, their women have been kidnapped, or been converted, their family members have been killed. That's why people said that, or the Brahmin said that, don't go to Kalapani or nahi to shrap lagega. So I don't know who is true here, Sanjeev Sanyal or Abhijit Chavda. Jai Shri Ram Ninad. Both sides have failings. No, I would say both sides have victories. I can't hear any criticism about Sanjeev Sanyal. JSD also struggles to be a moderator, as seen in OAC versus Swami debate. Abhinav Prakash is better moderator. Yeah, true. बट अभिनव प्रकाश का मॉडरेटिंग का एग्जाम्पल का प्रॉब्लम ये है कि अभिनव प्रकाश जब भी मॉडरेटर के सीट में बैठता है, वहां पे गेस्ट होते हैं, क्या 15-20 लोगों को बुलाते हैं डिबेट करने के लिए, सब लोग 1-2 सेकंड के लिए 1-2 लाइन बोलेंगे. क्या 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 मीनिंग है इस डिबेट का? किरपाल वाज रिजेक्टेड फॉर बीइंग गे, इज ट्रू. व्हाई द फक, बाय हु वाज ही रिजेक्टेड फॉर बीइंग गे? वो गे होता तो क्या होता, साइड में चंद्रचूड़ को जाता फ्लर्ट करने. व्हाट वाज द प्रॉब्लम? श्रोम चक्रवर्ती, थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर द डोनेशन. I want to say that Rajiv Malhotra was the first one to mention ESG, but Sanjeev just plagiarized it. His book Land of Rivers, Ocean of Churn, basically based on ideas that Rajiv Malhotra talked earlier. I don't see how. But also, ESG, Rajiv Malhotra talked about ESG. So what? Sanjeev Sanyal did not read Rajiv Malhotra's book. That's the fault here. So what's the argument here? Because Sanjeev Sanyal also didn't really read Rajiv Malhotra's book mysteriously and then talk about ESG on his own. See, I am bringing out the news of ESG all upon you. Okay, but I learned it from Rajiv Malhotra. No, he was listening to the podcast by Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David. Okay, and he just shared that clip. Rajiv Malhotra has no right to feel butthurt about this, because in the end, in the whole world, Vivek Ramaswamy is the first one to speak of this. Okay, not even Rajiv Malhotra. Then we can say everyone has plagiarized Vivek Ramaswamy only. Even Patrick Bet-David has basically plagiarized Vivek Ramaswamy, because Patrick Bet-David has not read Rajiv Malhotra's book, right? Patrick Bet-David knows all about this because Vivek Ramaswamy came on his podcast 10 months ago. So if we start only, looking for who came up with the idea first, then we will have a problem, and a stupid problem. It was government who opposed him for other reasons, not because he's gay. I see. No, Chandrachud and his boys rejected him. अरे सब कोई अलग अलग उत्तर दे रहा है. Joy Madurga, Harsha, yes, hi. Hi Dusty, hi. AIM said that Saurabh Kirpal is rightist. What kind of rightist? Economic right wing? No, Rajiv spoke about it much earlier. Spoke about what? ESG or this, that we have great great people in our history.
On the other hand, we have J.S.I. Deepak, who has also written several books about the constitution called Bharat, that is India, that is Bharat, and also Bharat, India, and Pakistan, the issue of civilization and coloniality and Hindu consciousness. Saurabh has written books about sex and the Supreme Court. He's written books about 15 judgments. Both of them are erudite, incisive, and ready to talk. We are very privileged to be hosting this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Saurabh Kirpal and J.S.I. Deepak. Yes, I'm doubly touched. Not only tennis braved the rains and a Sunday, but to have a full house. That's an honor of all of you, all the sessions here today. Sai, as I already said, most of you would know, and I think I forgot that one little fact. Both of them are opposing lawyers in this petition, the same-sex petition. Sai is representing those who don't want same-sex people who love same-sex to have the right to marry. And Saurabh, of course, is representing the petitioners who want to have the right for same-sex marriage. So let me dive in here, Sai. As I said, there are many deep issues, but let's start with the particular petition. You said something very interesting, which is that you said they have a cause, but not a case. So let me start you with the role of empathy first. What is the cause that you believe they do have?
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share space with Mr. Kirpal and to engage with this audience. I'm grateful to the audience for having braved the weather and for having made it all the way here. And in fact, there are quite a few people who have flown from different states who are in this debate. I don't think it's a debate, but let's hope we manage to make it one. So you started off by saying that I represented, at least on the side of people who are opposed to same-sex marriage. That doesn't sit well with the statement I made that they have a cause but not a case, which means I'm not exactly against them. In fact, just before, let me just give you an insight. I think this is not sub judice. Before my arguments commenced, I went and spoke with one of the counsels for the other side. I have a decent working equation with them. And I wanted to tell them, I'm with you otherwise on principle. I have certain institutional objections, which are largely technical in nature. My question has always been that if you choose to open the door of judicial activism for one particular subject or one particular issue, notwithstanding the fact that we may actually root for that particular cause, or we may want them to see something by way of a clear recognition. My fear is that an unelected body is capable of stretching the limits of that particular accommodation to other issues. And the world over, the one question that people have always asked is whether this concept of constitutional morality is fairly objective, or is it subject to the vagaries of the ideological leanings of the person who occupies that particular position? I refuse to believe that there is anything called objective anymore, at least not when it comes to some of these subjects. If someone has a position, they have chosen not to sit on the fence. Most are not fence sitters. If they do happen to be fence sitters, either they are uninterested or apathetic. But if they do take a position, they will tilt one way or the other. It's only a question of the degree of the tilt. So my position has not been contrary to popular perception and contrary to the memes or the trolling that I was subjected to, which I welcome, I don't have a problem anymore, is I'm certainly not homophobic, in fact, and I can reveal this without compromising on attorney-client privilege. Two of the transgender petitioners who were on the side of Mr. Kirpal, the counsels went AWOL.
Sorry, what?
Away on the crucial day. And they were unreachable. I was reached out by both these people to say, we know that you have defended our positions in the past. Could you argue for us as well? So I had taken a position which is captured in writing in my written submissions, a very clear centrist position with respect to the starting steps towards what they want without violating the doctrine of separation of powers. Allow me to just make one point and I'll leave it at that. Some arguments are technical, which perhaps an audience which comes from the legal fraternity is better positioned to understand. And it's difficult to, or at least perhaps I may fall short on explaining that particular position. And in the process, the fact that my position was more about institutional boundaries and less about homophobia, and certainly not about homophobia, gets lost. And that is the nature of social media debates. This is my position. I need to clarify.
Okay. Sorry, can't hear. Okay.
And it's no mystery why just a technical argument gets misconstrued as homophobia, because everyone's premise is so far off in the left. The premise is that yes, being gay is absolutely, I mean, being gay, transgender is absolutely fine, and it's so fine that it's going to be made an aspirational model like in the US in 10 years. It's so fine. It's not just casually fine. It's not like, okay, you are gay, okay, then fine, go away, go do your life. No, we have to celebrate it. Yes, fucking gay. Chalo bhai, hum transgender ban gaye. It has to be like that. If you're not like that, then you are homophobic. And that's why Desai Deepak's argument gets misconstrued. Okay, let me just check some important comments. Okay. Yeah, so Jai Hind dosto. If Rajiv Malhotra spoke about ESG first, no one read it, right? Even I haven't read it. I've only heard that Rajiv Malhotra has written about it. So how can you blame Sanjeev Sanyal for not reading it? Even Sanjeev Sanyal is getting it from Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David got it from Vivek Ramaswamy. He is coming from a altogether different lineage of gurus, so to speak. Okay. So Rajiv Malhotra's problem is that Sanjeev got it from Patrick Bet-David and not him. This is pretty weird. Okay, he was pushed as a candidate with his sexuality as the basis. Ke acha gay hai, chalo bhejte hain. He's also from an eminent family. At the end of this video, just like JSG, the basis of appointment was the issue. In effect, CJI wanted him for being gay. Okay, government did not. So government ka kya problem tha? Kirpal is a rightist. He represented Modi's defense for 2002. He is not rightist according to the premises he presented here. Is he a rightist, I mean, by economic standards? Or was he rightist just because the right-wing government hired him? In what way was he rightist? I saw someone saying we all know what each letter means in LGBTQIA plus, but we don't know what plus means. That plus is very problematic. No, and most of all, the T is also very problematic because the L, G, and B have no association with the T. They are absolutely opposed to the T. If someone is really L, G, and B, they can't absolutely allow the existence of T, because T means that there's no such thing called definitely male or definitely female. So if there is no such thing as definitely male and definitely female, how can you be definitely lesbian and definitely gay? Maybe you're just a trans woman and not a gay man. So they are absolutely opposed to each other. And so Rutvik, let me know. Okay, are you saying he was rightist because he was hired by right-wing government? Because lawyers don't have a personal ideology all the time. They don't fight cases just because of their personal ideology of the time. After all, they are up for hire. After all, they are professionals. JSD ate her, but why he was not so aggressive? Yeah, Desai Deepak, I think he's working out a lot and he seems very relaxed and very calm. Even in a recent speech I saw, he was very calm. The captions are just wow.
Am I audible?
Can everyone hear at the back?
Okay. Oh, my.
Sai, you got away a bit. It's interesting, and I'm going to bring Saurabh into that. Like you said, at the heart of this, your argument is it's about jurisdiction. That do the courts have the right to nudge society to change, or should it be from Parliament, which is an elected forum and represents the will of the people? But am I right in saying that you think that they have a just cause and that same-sex marriage in some other forum, perhaps in Parliament, should be allowed? And if it was brought up in Parliament, you would be one of the voices backing it. Can we say that on record?
Okay, so I hope this is not one of those primetime television debates
No.
where they say pro, against.
No,
this.
not at all. I told you this is a.
Right.
I'm
So
playing
let
the
me
role
clarify
of.
my position. So the position that I've taken is this. Barely a month before, am I audible? Yes, okay. Barely a month before the arguments began, there was a seminar on this very subject organized by MNLU, one of the national law universities in Mumbai. And I'd taken the very clear position that if you really want to take a position of least resistance, do not enter or stir the hornet's nest of seeking amendment through the judiciary of either the Hindu Marriage Act or any other legislation. Take the secular position, go under the Special Marriage Act. That was my very clear position. And this is on record because this is a recorded event that's available on YouTube. Second.
Yeah, and my question is, why not? What is the problem with this position? No one has explained really. Why not this position? Who's SS? Subramaniam Swami, complete fraud, opportunist, subversionist. Yes, Subramaniam Swami. I don't know what is his goal here. What is he doing? Okay, transgenderism doesn't believe in biological text. Yes, Rajivji publicly started talking about ESG and other stuff in mid 2021. Yes, the same time as Vivek Ramaswamy. Maybe he knows them because Rajiv and Vivek Ramaswamy are pretty much in the same tax bracket, same country, same industry. So they probably know each other. He said he talked about the PMO office. I agree. Sanjeev Sanyal talked about it from a different source. Yeah. Okay. How is someone first to talk about ESG? Literally, when it started, there were certain groups, but just without articulate voice. How is it being first? And yes. Okay.
What I said was that even if you take this position, it's going to be extremely difficult for the bench to justify to itself the ask. So therefore, why don't you actually ask something different, which is ask the judiciary to monitor the legislature in terms of pushing the ball on this and ask them to set the ball rolling and have a discussion at the very least. The unfortunate problem is in some of these issues, and I say this with no disrespect to anyone, interested parties usually are attached to the cause, right? And therefore, some suggestions which may not meet with their agreement in terms of the rigor or the vigor with which you wish to represent may fall on deaf ears. And therefore, I said there are better ways of doing this. Because when you ask this, you're also putting members of the bench in a fix and you're asking them to open a door, which is deeply problematic. So that has been my position. I'm not going to skirt the question. I will certainly support their cause provided they do not interfere with religious aspects simply because there are serious issues there which are not in any way homophobic. In fact, the question would be, do you want the job done or do you want to prove a point? That would be the simple question.
Okay. I'm going to come back to ask you what is the religious point at stake. And let me just bring Saurabh in here. Saurabh, he's saying that there's a just cause, but the approach and the forum is wrong. So then at the heart of it is the question that should the courts play the role of a moral arbiter in a society where small groups, and I don't want to use the word minority because it's got infused with so many implications. Let's just say a group that does not have a large voice in parliament wants.
No, Rutvik, I have a disagreement with you that I have seen this debate fully. Okay. So yes, none of them are against gay rights. Basically, none of them are saying throw gay people off the buildings. None of them are saying that yes, if someone's found to be gay, put them in jail. No one's saying that. Yes, they agree on this, but the technicality is extremely important. How we get to gay rights and gay marriage, how we get to that, what precedence does it set, is extremely important, so that being gay, being transgender does not become an aspirational model like it has in the West. We have to absolutely prevent that. And the way Mr. Kirpal is pursuing it, it's going to be an aspirational model in 10 years. The way Sai Deepak is pursuing it, it's going to be prevented from being an aspirational model. And what my proposal is that we have to accept it, but reluctantly, not celebrate it. I don't want to celebrate transgenderism. That's what I'm saying. Or gay marriage or gay rights. I'm specifically against gay marriage. I'm not against homosexuality as per se. I don't think marriage can be conjured up one fine morning just on the basis of anything and between anyone and anything. Okay, I'm not for gay marriage. I'm okay with legalizing homosexuality, but not gay marriage. Marriage is very specific. Marriage is specifically between a man and a woman living together forever and after, raising children, raising grandchildren. JJ Prokar Lok in the parliament. We don't have the good options, so it doesn't exactly represent the will of the people, but democracy is the best system we have. Yes, we do.
A right for itself, and they approach the court. Is that the correct path, or do you think he has a point there that the court should not be playing a role in this?
Well, the 2 points that my friend Sai has made are, of course, mutually exclusive. You can't simultaneously say, go to court and get a judgment there, while also saying, don't go to court, go to the court of the people, i.e. parliament. Right? You can't have them simultaneously, because you go to court when parliament is not doing something. No one wants to rush to court if you are getting the rights that you deserve. And that is not how our constitutional scheme really works. Courts are a protection which have been given to minorities, and I don't hesitate to use that word, or indeed even the majority, because often you may be a numerical majority, but a political minority. For instance, women in our country are a political majority, and yet a large number of rights are denied to them on the basis of maybe religious laws, on sexual harassment. So the point is, you have...
What sexual harassment law is not given to women? See, these far left premises are coming out now. Whoever was saying he is rightist centrist, what kind of rightist and centrist point of view is this?
No option.
तो माइनॉरिटी वर्ड बोलने का अगर हिम्मत है ही तो बोलो कौन से रिलीजन में वुमेन को राइट नहीं मिलता है, वो भी बोल दो. रिलीजन ऐसे ही वुमेन को माइनॉरिटी बना दिया. So if we are really starting out from a premise of group rights, okay, if let's say a musician and a journalist have a fight on the road, should the headline be that musician beats up journalist, so now it's a fight between all musicians and all journalists, or should it be a fight between just two random people who got into a scuffle on the road? Okay, if you view it from the group rights angle, if you come up with the premise that it's obviously a group rights thing, okay, then we have to come up with further questions. Okay, so then Hindu law becomes absolutely necessary, and in Hindu religious law there's no place for gay rights, or I mean gay marriage. So even he'll be screwed on that only. But what I'm saying is, on the basis of group rights, many other things can be also just randomly called minority rights. Okay, so let's say metal musicians and rock musicians are a minority in the entire country. Okay, among all other musicians, they are a minority in all music industries as well. So what, now we should have some sort of reservations कि नहीं हर बॉलीवुड फिल्म में 5 मेटल गाने होने चाहिए ही चाहिए. ये ग्रुप राइट्स का चुतियापा शुरू से ही कर रहा है, तो ये कैसा सेंट्रिस्ट हुआ, कैसा राइटिस्ट हुआ? Instead of husband and wife, use spouse or 2 adults. I kind of agree with Abhay Agarwal. I'll have to think about that. A secular marriage code for all religions where you include homosexuals too. No, I don't want specifically marriage for gay people. Vivek Ramaswamy was pretty articulate on this. Transgenderism is 99% of the time mental disease, and gay lesbian is equal to is normal. Yes, and actually the therapist who finally gave the sanction that yes, gay and lesbian is basically a normal thing and not really a mental disease. Even that therapist himself said that transgenderism is a mental disease. And I have done a video on this, that how transgenderism came up as a mainstream idea because of that insane doctor whose paper wasn't refuted until decades later, who basically experimented on two normally healthy children, chopped off their genitals, etc., and made them artificially transgender, and then wrote a paper saying that yes, see, aisa to hota hai. Agree, but both aren't adversarial to each other. Yes. Kirpal has never been adversarial. Kirpal has been nice as fuck. Shoma Chaudhury has been adversarial, and with a smirk that, so you see, he's a fascist, and how do you counter fascism? As a argument diya bar. Why can't gay relation be considered marriage? Because marriage is a specific thing. Relation is going to a date, having sex, etc. But marriage is a very specific institution. That's why. Okay. Marriage has a specific Hindu definition. Many Vedic rites can be performed by a married couple. Only be performed by a married couple. This is just another attempt to interfere in Hindu traditions. JSG proposes partnerships for same sex. Exactly what I am saying. One argument I was told that marriage is for tax benefits, so gays should be allowed marriage if others also are. Yeah. And there are plenty of other ways to get tax benefits as well. Why don't you want gay marriage? Because marriage is a very fundamentally religious institution with very specific connotations, specific results, facilities, and benefits. And that does not happen between gay people.
Sexual harassment. So the point is, you have no option but to go to court when your rights are being denied to you. You don't, as I said, rush to court for any and everything. It's only when you feel you are not being given your just dues. Now, I don't start from a position that everyone, like people like Sai, are homophobic. No, I don't judge people. I judge the argument that is made. So let's judge this argument that has been made, that the institutional power to determine as to whether there should be marriage equality, and again, I'll rephrase the term, rather than saying same-sex marriage, to be marriage equality. That if straight people have a right to enter into a union, which gives their life so much meaning and purpose and is so important for them, legally, philosophically, from the manner of identity, then you are excluding a vast swathe of people.
Yeah, call it legal union then, civil union, not marriage. Like it was up till in 2013, 2014, even in USA, Hillary Clinton was also against gay marriage. अचानक वो तो liberal बन गई, woke बन गई.
And discriminating against them. And now those people already in a minority cannot possibly.
By what I mean civil union is civil union versus marriage में क्या difference होगा? They have it's not like just two people getting together and have sex in one hotel room for one afternoon. They have the right to live together and no one has the right to harass them anyway, unless that's the law. So I mean, if they present some papers that yes, see, we are in a civil union of sorts, but we can't call it marriage and they can't have ceremonies, because otherwise it becomes a celebration of homosexuality and a glorification and an aspirational model.
Go to parliament and say, please do this for me, because really asking to reach out to the better side of an MP with whom you have no contact with is virtually impossible. Right? So the logistics of it can't happen. But that also does not matter, because our constitution does not require a disempowered person to suffer the indignity of being disempowered doubly by saying that the only person you can go to is that person who is oppressing you in the first place, i.e. the majority in parliament. Our constitutional scheme gives an option to such a person that when you are being oppressed, then
yes, अरे तो majority है तो क्या करे? Majority है तो वो मानना तो पड़ेगा. Majority है इसलिए majority को ignore कर देंगे, या majority है इसलिए majority को convince करेंगे?
then you have an unelected body to go to. It's precisely because they are unelected that they have the power to come to the aid of those to whom the elected are not coming in aid of. Right? So it is a checks and balance situation, and this is how the system is created. So it's correct that you are not going to parliament and you're going to a different jurisdiction, but that is our constitutional frame. And our constitution is the very same document that has created parliament. It is not as the parliament predates the constitution. We have a system where you have 37% of the people.
Yeah, actually something does predate the constitution. That is the Hindu majority. The majority you're talking about, bypassing, that majority is the one who sanctioned and came up with this constitution. The constitution did not fall from the sky.
People which will return a majority in parliament of 55-60%. We do not question that at all. We accept that because we believe in the constitution, we believe in the first past the post system, we believe in the idea of representation in that manner. We are all committed to it, and there is no question of illegitimacy when parliament passes an act, even though it is not backed by 50% of the people, because the constitution permits it. Well, the very same constitution also permits any individual
50% of the people. अरे parliament में MPs किसका representative है?
Going to the court and saying that my fundamental rights have been violated, and I don't see why that should be put to a higher judicial or a constitutional or social scrutiny than when parliament makes an act which is not backed by 50% of the people.
So I want you to come in there. You know, there are several things that you've opened up, and as I shared with the audience, there are many things we want to unpack: conservatism, individual rights, community rights. You know, there are many things here. But let's stick with this for the time being. You said that they should go to parliament, but what happens in a scenario where there's a just cause, and I'm just saying it's this government, it could be previous governments, but the government representing so-called the voice of the people is actually arguing against this group. When 377 was struck down, and criminality of homosexuality was struck down by the courts, not by parliament, the government actually went to the Supreme Court to try and overturn that. So clearly there's a biased social will there, which is against the fundamental rights of this group. In that setting, how do you think they would have recourse?
So I think, thanks to what Mr. Kirpal has said, I have to now bring in aspects of the law, and this is crucial. Now that I've clarified my position as to whether I'm homophobic or transphobic or whatnot, so let me now come to the actual question. Right? No, not you, I'm generally saying that. See, here's the point. I think at some stage, members of the legal profession must acquire some degree of humility to basically say, we can't be experts on everything from gynecology to ethnology. There are certain issues which require inputs from subject matter stakeholders and experts. I'll give you a direct example. What is the point of going to the legislature in the first place? What happens in the legislature? I could be at point 0, Mr. Kirpal could be at point 100. When you go to the legislature, the process is such that neither of us will walk away with our respective positions, but we'll be forced to actually come to a centrist position one way or the other. There is some kind of a compromise that is struck as a part of the particular process. Now you're saying that I'm going to keep every voice out of this particular discussion because I believe that I'm disenfranchised and I don't think I have a voice. And therefore, I will go to this particular institution, which has its own serious limitations, which have been exposed time and again on several issues, which require subject matter expertise, and then tell this institution that it's only a question of equality. Now, every time people draw a parallel between this petition, the issue in this particular petition, and the Nas Foundation petition or the Johar petition on 377, they make a mistake. One was a question of decriminalizing a particular act, and therefore it was a one-point agenda. But the other is the question of not recognizing just the right of equality, but the creation of an institution, because marriage is not just a concept, it's an institution.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Now, my comment section got frozen here, but I'm checking my comments from the YouTube phone, from my phone. Okay, so let me answer some people here. I agree with Nirajanda's opinion here. Okay, I think it's discriminatory to not allow gays to marry. Yes, we are discriminating against something or the other all the time. Having any preferences means discrimination. If you are preferring to get into Jadavpur University, it means you are discriminating against Ashutosh College. Anyway, not all couples marry for child. Many do for companionship. Without gay marriage, inheritance and stuff will have problem. Bypass that, fix that on its own. But marriage has to be for a child, and it must be remembered forever and after that marriage is for a child. The moment you let go of this fundamental condition that marriage is for raising a child and raising a family, that's when you make it a glorification and open a floodgate to say that marriage is just another contract where two people have sex and live together for maybe 10 or 15 years, and at the same time glorify sleeping around and make homosexuality, transgenderism, all woke bullshit an aspirational model. The moment you let go of this particular thing, that marriage is for two people to have kids and raise a kid, create citizens for the society, for the country. Marriage has a very specific Hindu definition. Certain Vedic rites can only ye to ho gaya. What's Hinduism stance on homosexuality? Arthashastra is against it, but Dharmashastra doesn't really say anything against them, because Dharmashastra says that marriage is all the time between men and women. They were not even bothered about gay people getting married. I don't really care about LGBTQ++. Does that mean I'm a bad person? No. So that will require a new law for civil law. Yeah. Many married heterosexual couples don't have kids consciously. Yes, and that's a side effect. That's a byproduct. That should not be the aspiration. But if we allow people to get married who can't even definitely have kids, it's not like they don't have kids out of choice, or they maybe don't have kids because of their health conditions, maybe because they're infertile. It's not that here. Here we know that these two people sure shot can't make babies. Even then we are telling them, yeah, get married, no problem. Then we are admitting that marriage has nothing to do with having kids. That's what I have a problem with. There is an acknowledgement of gays in Hindu tradition, something outside of Shastras, as said by JSD. Yeah, there are allusions to people being gay, but not gay marriage ever. You need to specify what is specific about marriage. Having kids and a family. If homosexual marriages are not to be glorified, the laws cannot discriminate. The society can choose to not glorify. No. The laws will start the floodgates here in this case, because the conversation will become about marriage not being about raising kids and having a family. Shoma Chaudhury was just irritating, honestly. I don't see the problem with celebration. Masculinity, femininity, and homosexuality can be celebrated, not the way pride people do it with rainbow over saffron, though. Yeah, what you were saying was said by Americans 15 years back, and they screwed it up. This is a demographic weapon, by the way. Certainly needs to be discussed in Parliament. There has been no history of oppression of gays in India. The West is different. Exactly. So keep it that way. Don't fix what's not broken. As an individual, I must have the right to marry anyone with consent. No, you don't, because marriage is about raising kids and not buying kids just out of adoption. Switch to all messages. Yes, got it. If a union is created for gay people, should they have the right to adopt kids? There I am kind of, I haven't come to a final conclusion, because a lot of straight parents are also bad parents, and a lot of people are abandoning kids. There is a demand for getting kids adopted who are growing up in orphanages. So in that case, a gay couple who does want kids is probably better than the kid living in an orphanage forever. But also, again, that also can't be made an aspirational model, that gay people just go around having kids, whereas it's proven psychologically the best thing for a kid is to have one father and one mother, to get both the influences of masculinity and femininity. Now that's the ideal, but the ideal is never living in an orphanage. So there's a debate to be had there. मगर ये लोग तो डिबेट नहीं करना चाह रहे हैं, सीधा जज को जाके पूछे अंकल अंकल जज अंकल जज अंकल हमको हमको शादी करने दो ना. तो दे हैव द डिबेट इन पार्लियामेंट. I can't think up all on my own. Same can be done for homosexual couples if they are allowed to adopt. Shoma is a Tehelka journal. Yes, I'm against gay lesbian couple having a child. It badly influences the child's natural attributes. Yes, I am 100% in agreement with you here. But it's still better than the kid living in an orphanage. So adoption might be better. So what would a homosexual union be called? This is so confusing. Civil union, gay union, anything. Shoma seems to be outdated, leftist even by leftist standard. Yes, she is very outdated. A child requires a male and female parents. Yes, exactly.
And if there are at the very least 600 to 700 attendant rights that go with the institution of marriage, from domestic violence to maintenance to child protection to whatnot, are we then saying that we will go to the court on a regular basis? Because this was one of the submissions made, and I'm sorry I have to make this point now. One of the submissions made by one of the counsels representing the other side, a very senior person, and whose erudition I have no doubts about whatsoever, except for this particular subject, who actually told the court, you declare that this is unequal, and we will keep coming to court or leave it to future courts to decide how this particular judgment is sought to be applied or must be applied in the context of every legislation that has a bearing on the institution of marriage or something that is related to marriage. So are you saying that courts are only, every court in this country and every constitutional court in this country is going to be turned into a matrimonial court? That's one. Hold on. Second, here's the problem. When someone says we are a minority, sorry, the statistics say otherwise. There are at the very least empirical studies to show that you're looking at a population of 7 crores to 10 crores in this country. By what yardstick in a country such as Bharat, 7 to 10 crores constitutes minority for a particular issue? That is a question that you have to ask. 3, Mr. Kirpal said that you can't say on the one hand, go to the legislation, on the other hand, it can't be advised, go to court. No. What is it that you use the judiciary for, or the forum of the court for? To ventilate a point of view. Sometimes you may not have a case in law, but you use that particular forum to actually stir the conscience of the legislature and the rest of the society in the hope that the point that you make through the court gets wider traction. People may...
See, I have never agreed with Desai Deepak more in my life. What Desai Deepak is basically saying is, अरे भाई persuade करो, convince करो, then हम देखते हैं. Because I, like JSD, I am not against homosexuality at all. My best friend in my life has been gay ever since I passed out of college from 2012 to 2000, I think 18, 19 or 2021. Basically, he was my best friend. Now I have an even better friend, so that's why I'm not counting as my best friend. But he has been gay. I have never been against homosexuality, but it's not marriage. Marriage is something very specific. A guy having sex with another guy is just another thing, and it's very not specifically marriage. It's a completely different thing. Marriage is a completely different thing. So I'm saying I am ready to get convinced. I'm not saying I'll never fucking get convinced. There's no argument that anyone can come up with. I'm not saying that. Let Kirpal only have hours and hours of debates, or let people who are representing gay people have these debates in parliament. Convince me. Come up with a better argument. Nahi. Judge uncle, dekho shaadi nahi karne de rahe.
To wake up. This has happened in more than one instance. There are multiple examples of this particular effect. So the point was, use the judiciary as an instrumentality to stir the conscience and to get the debate going without violating certain boundaries. I respect the fact that the Constitution protects certain rights, because the Constitution also protects what we call unconscious rights. Babies have rights, except that they are not aware of it.
Right.
Infants have rights.
So if I may just come in here,
Right.
and Saurabh, I'm going to ask you to respond to this, but just to emphasize certain things that you're saying.
Yeah.
Two, one is that the courts don't have the expertise or the jurisdiction
Correct.
to speak about personal laws or of these institutions. So one, would you say that the triple talaq case is not something that should have gone to court, but should have gone to parliament?
Fantastic. In fact, I've just written a piece exactly on this point. Be it triple talaq or Sabrimala, the best part is the judiciary itself has now framed this matter and has sent it to a larger bench. What have they asked? They've framed about 9 questions saying, we as a secular institution, which lacks ecclesiastical training in different subjects which relate to different faiths, do we have the ability to distill what is known as the essential religious practice of a particular faith in the context of a particular tradition? And do we have the ability to do so? And that question has already been framed. So in principle, I've taken the position, be it triple talaq, Haji Ali Dargah, hijab, or Sabrimala, the court, frankly speaking, does not have the ability as a trained expert on the particular subject. There are people who have dedicated themselves to the study of this particular subject. There are religious studies chairs all over the world. And you're telling me that a lawyer knows everything under the sun. Is that even possible? So when this question has already been framed, where you have recognized as an institution the serious limits of the application of your own judicious mind to some of these issues, why don't you relegate it to a better institution, which is the legislature? And I do not subscribe to the cynical position that the legislature is always to be looked down upon and the judiciary is always supposed to be looked up to. I don't subscribe to that school of thought at all, one bit.
Okay. Saurabh, I'm going to ask you to respond to that, but I just want to emphasize, I'm leaving.
Yes, this is also something to be remembered, okay? Desai Deepak is the only one, I think, from the right-wing side who has reminded this to people, that even in case of banning hijab, the court should not decide it by saying that it's not sanctioned, it's not an essential practice in Islam. अरे भाई तुम कोई नहीं हो इस्लाम में sanctioned है कि नहीं डिसाइड करने में, तुम इसको regardless of इस्लाम देखो. नहीं तो हिंदुइज्म में भी आके बोल देंगे कि अच्छा तो वो मटकी फोड़ना भी एसेंशियल प्रैक्टिस नहीं है. हमारा तो एसेंशियल प्रैक्टिस है कि नहीं, इसमें कोई कंसेंसस आना पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. एक एक संप्रदाय का एक एक कस्टम है, एक एक जगह का एक एक संप्रदाय का एक एक कस्टम है. तो no judge in India has any moral right to say that yes, I have decided that this particular thing is an essential practice, unless there are sanctions of different religious groups, religious gurus, Maulvis, etc.
One thought with you. He just said that there's not the expertise to speak on this, and maybe the wrong question was framed. Was it meant to be just?
Yeah, Abhay has given an interesting point here. I think marriage as an institution has evolved from polygamy to monogamy. Then it can also evolve from raising children to companionship they want to celebrate. Now, for this, you don't really need marriage. That's what I'm saying. Celebrate your relationship. Go to Himachal Pradesh. Have fun. Live together. Why do you specifically need marriage? Okay, that's what I'm saying. You can't take away the freedom of people to celebrate. The society can choose to not participate in the celebration. Yes, but we can direct it. As a person who does not want people to celebrate this, I can call for things that will take the discussion, divert the direction of this river. Okay, so I will never go actively telling people or banning people from celebrating homosexuality, but I want the conversation to get into get to in a certain direction where people won't end up celebrating it, and they will end up celebrating it and think that this is the definitely one way to go. If marriage is taken away from its kids having and family raising connotations. JSG is evolving in all ways, fitness and profession. Yes, that seems like it. I believe masculinity and femininity should be celebrated, whether homosexuality should neither be condoned nor condemned. Yeah. After getting brozoned by multiple girls, I kind of feel gay now. No, that's not how it happens. Binay Singh, Dada, Rajiv Malhotra idea about moral objectivism is better than moral relativism. Yes, that's why we have laws. Rajiv Malhotra started 25 years ago. He funded history of Indian science and technology. He started Indian psychology. Yeah. Dada, what I was saying is that Rajiv Malhotra was the first one to talk about ESG in India, but even then Sanjeev Sanyal cited a Western guy that is inferiority complex. No, it means that Sanjeev Sanyal did not read Rajiv Malhotra's book, but watched Joe Rogan's podcast. That's what also happened to me. That's not inferiority podcast, inferiority complex. That's just Joe Rogan is more popular and people casually listen to his podcast while going to work, while working out. Sanjeev Sanyal works out, okay? So while working out, he can't read Rajiv Malhotra's 500-page book. Do you understand difference between sex and gender? It confuses me. There is no difference between sex and gender. Sala edike straight hoye biye kore manush pacchi na. This cannot be prohibited through laws. Things that may be immoral may not be necessarily illegal. Yes, but the direction of the discourse can be nudged.
Just an issue of fundamental rights rather than religious practice. So I'm going to come back to you to ask you on that. You made one other point, Sai, which was about inconvenience and sheer plethora of cases that will open up if equality of marriage is granted to those who love the same sex. And you said there's 600 other implications of that.
Inconvenience is not my argument.
Whatever may be, but
Right.
You're saying a plethora of cases will open. Will they keep coming back to the courts? The simple point is, here is a community that is not impinging. You know, you've said somewhere else that here you're trying to individualize a social institution.
Correct.
You've also said in the context of the same case that
Correct.
should society not have the right to draw red lines?
Correct.
Now, those are very subjective because who will decide those red lines?
Correct.
The institution of marriage itself is a very modern.
Okay, who will decide? I have heard this argument from countless leftist people and woke people. So remember, when they say who decides morals, you can't moral police. Who decide means either they decide or nobody decides. Okay, who decides ka meaning connotation ye hai.
Concept in the Hindu tradition itself.
Is it? Okay.
We've been allowed to have
Deepak is saying, is marriage really a new concept, bro?
red lines.
Correct.
The institution of marriage itself is a very modern concept. In the Hindu tradition itself,
Is it? Okay.
we've been allowed to have 3 marriages and 100 wives, etc. Right? So in this case,
100 wives. Okay, now she's confusing philosophy and mythology. हर वक्त बोलेंगे महाभारत रामायण तो mythology है, मगर जब शादी का बात आएगा तब ये एकदम 100% literal truth है. कृष्ण भगवान का एकदम definitely 16,108 wives ही थे.
Is it? Okay.
we've been allowed to have 3 marriages and 100 wives, etc. Right? So in this case, there's a group of people that feel their fundamental right under Article 14, 15, 19, and 21 are being denied. And that is not impinging on the rest of us from having children, dowry, property, etc., etc.
Yes, it is affecting. This is the same argument that American white liberals have made for about 50 years, that तुम्हारा क्या जाता है? अरे तुम छोड़ो ना. Even for transgenderism debates, this same argument is presented even today, which is अरे तुमको क्या है, उसको ही हर शी देम जो चाहते हैं वो लोग, वो तुम बोलो, तुम्हारा क्या जाता है. तुम्हारा ये जाता है कि it becomes the aspirational model, and then your kids, 2 kids, 3 kids, everyone you know starts saying that transgenderism is I am transgender and I am gay, I can't have kids and the society is oppressing me, therefore vote for the Democratic Party, therefore my country is bad, therefore society has been oppressing me, therefore patriarchy is screwing my life, therefore capitalism is screwing my life, therefore raise taxes to solve all these problems. That is my problem.
etc. They are being denied, right? They're not trying to take away our rights to have children.
Yeah,
So why is
mostly
there
wale.
even a resistance to expanding the rights of others when it's not taking away any from us?
Okay. What is the extent to which you're willing to extrapolate this logic? Because I have a couple of examples in mind.
Please throw
तुम्हारा क्या जाता है? That's the argument. तुम्हारा क्या जाता है is not an argument.
them at us.
Okay. Assuming that there are 2 couples and they're interested in having a polyamorous relationship inter se. They're all adults and hopefully not brothers and sisters. Okay. They know what they're doing and they've chosen to enter into this particular relationship. Then there comes a point that this becomes a phenomenon where you realize that it's not limited to certain pockets.
It becomes a phenomenon. In my language, I'm saying it becomes an aspirational model. Okay. तो एक भाई बहन शादी कर रहे हैं, सेक्स कर रहे हैं, तुम्हारा क्या जाता है, तुम्हारा क्या जाता है, अजीब बात है.
But there perhaps is greater acceptance to this, but in silent tones or in whispers. Okay. Assume for a moment that this particular practice acquires a certain critical mass. What is your position going to be then? Are you going to apply the harm principle to basically say that the institution of marriage is proven to be a failure, therefore let's do away with every definition or every notion that's associated? No, hold on. If you're going to tell me that this is a hypothetical, this is speculative, sorry.
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say,
Right.
I was going to say, as a good lawyer, you can see the inherent contradiction in what you're saying. Because at one level, you're saying this must be the will of society.
Right.
If the will of society is to have polyamorous relationships,
Right.
how do you become the custodian to stop that?
And if the will of the society is to alter the nature of the constitution and to give this country a different identity, what's
Sorry,
your
I
position?
can't hear you.
If the will of the society is also going to be to change the nature of the constitution, hit reset on the constitution, give it a different rashtra altogether, will you give effect to that identity as well?
You know, you've changed. I was
No,
asking
the
you a
logic is
different
the
question.
same.
No,
The
no,
logic is the
no,
same.
logic is not
If
the
the
same.
How is the logic not the same?
I'm
I
gonna ask-
accept something, you're saying it must be acceptable to the judiciary. If I were to end up convincing 90% of this community, or let's say of this country, to my position on certain issues, will you then accept it? Then I then say, I don't need to go to the court. I'll hit reset. I'll use Article 368 and come out with a different constitution altogether. Republic 2.0. Are you okay with it?
Okay, you know, I'm going to get drawn into, I'm going to play referee and
I got my
not,
answer.
not the discussant entirely over here. Saurabh, why don't you take on, I mean, I have some views, but I'm not the discussant. Why don't you take on 2 or 3 of those questions? One was the expertise of the court. The other is what he said, where does this line stop in terms of what society can do if you open the doors on some of it?
Well, I think so. We have now moved from questioning whether Parliament can intervene from a constitutional perspective, which is, do they have the jurisdiction or not within our constitution? I hope we accept that they do. The question then shifts and say, well, even if they have the constitutional authority, they do not have the expertise. Now there, the argument is somehow fetishizing Parliament and saying Parliament has this expertise, the courts do not, right? Now that's simply not true.
No, Parliament has indirectly expertise because first of all, will of the people है, मगर will of the people में क्या है? Experts का opinion है, experts directly voting for those MPs, and also people listening to those experts. So experts' opinion is at least filters through in the voice of the MPs, but expert opinion is not cared about maybe at all when 2 or 3 judges are giving a judgment that whether it's really essential to this religion or not. Okay, let me check some comments once again. I think I missed a comment. Abhay, please explain. Abhay, divorce laws should be stringent. Yes, for unless they are getting beaten up, divorce should not be allowed. Or if different threats of dowry and all are going on, unless it's that, there should not be any divorce. There should not be no fault divorce, etc. Unless the kid is 18. If sex and gender are the same, yeah. Live-in relationship in Hindu text is also referred to as Gandhar Viva. Yes, there are, I guess, 8 kinds of marriages. The marriage we know today is the only kind of marriage recognized, and that marriage is only for raising kids. Lol, will of society or will of leftists? Yeah, that's the problem with her premises. Bro, the issue is the community needs to square their way of life with society more than anything. The main point of homosexual marriage, yes. Aditya Deepak is the GOAT, yes. Rajiv Malhotra point of view is that Indian values, ideas are better in every aspect. It must be objectively proved, and for that we need good scholars. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's not the topic. JSD. Okay, Maximus. As much as I like JSD, he gets a bit arrogant sometimes, but his logic is fair. Arrogant is kind of a tonality का एक issue है. Can Hindutva somehow hijack LGBTI and make dharmics out of? There are plenty of LGBTQI dharmic people, but on economics and based on rights etc., they are all leftists. See the lecture by Adi Achint on morality, lecturing by West. Objective relative must be understood in that light. Okay, I hope it's not like Palki Sharma's criticism of the West. Okay, Adi Achint himself lives in the West. I won't listen to arguments like, okay, they did Iraq war, now they don't have the right to. अरे जो लोग इराक वॉर को क्रिटिसाइज किए थे वो भी अगर इंडिया के बारे में खराब बोले, then how can you tell that person that नहीं तुमने तो इराक किया था, अब हमको क्यों बोल रहे हो? Like if Bernie Sanders criticizes India's or on something, you can't tell him that मगर तुम लोगों ने तो इराक किया. बर्नी सैंडर्स ने इराक पहले दिन से अपोज किया था. तो हम सबको समझना होगा कि वहां पे कौन लोग यूएसए के कौन कौन चीजों में भी अपोजिशन किए थे एंड उसके बाद इंडिया को अपोज कर रहे हैं कि नहीं. Is there really a hypocrisy of the person you are directly addressing? Otherwise, just saying West nahi hai kya, West doesn't have the right, etc. That's a bullshit argument. If it's Western politicians, then fair enough, because all Western politicians were pro Iraq war, pro Vietnam war, etc. But so now, if they say that we have to follow rule of law, etc., then it's a big problem. But if you're specifically talking about Western academics, etc., then it's a problem, because they have always been against Iraq war and Vietnam war. Isn't Gandharva Vivah eloping? No, eloping is a different Vivah. I think what Rakshasa Vivaha or Asur Vivaha ऐसा कुछ नाम है. That one is eloping. Marriages cannot be casual. Premarital relations can be fluid legally. अरे भाई मैं तो यही बोल रहा हूँ. Marriages can't be casual, and marriages not being casual means marriages can't be for anything other than having kids. If you don't end up having kids because of your physical disabilities, I mean not being infertile, etc., then it's a different problem. But you can't start out with the idea that yeah, definitely we are not going to have kids. We are not even allowed. I mean, we are not even going to be able to have kids because of our bodies, because we are two men or two women. But we are going to get married anyway. That means people who do celebrate marriage as something very specific for raising family, you're basically saying that your beliefs doesn't matter. It's the same as eating beef. Okay, on one side we are saying that because we can't hurt religious traditions, we are not going to be allowed to hurt your sentiments, etc. We are not going to be allowed to draw paintings of your god. But when it comes to my god, you are allowed to kill my god, chop up my god, cook my god, and eat up my god, and shit out my god. Okay, that's the kind of bullshit we are dealing with here. That can't be allowed in case of marriage as well. ये तुम्हारा क्या जाता है? तुम तो पूजा करते हो, तुम पूजा करो, अपने दिल में पूजा करो, हम खा लेंगे तुम जिसको पूजा कर रहे हो. That can't be an argument. Why is Pisach Vivaha even Vivaha? Because it was more accepting of a society, and if we all become Hindus, and we can become that much of an accepting society, but not when people are having 3 wives and 50 kids. Gandharva Vivaha is marriage not sanctioned by the society. It is described as Vivaha. Yes. Yeah, so I guess so they just live together on their own, and then they don't bother the society because of tax benefits, etc. Why you all leftists speak with the same accent? This woman speaks in that specific accent I have seen in hundreds of leftists. The one and only LGBTQ Hindu activist was beaten up very badly. His name was Gopal Krishnan. I see. Can live-in relationship be classified as civil union then to make them have accountability? No, then it literally becomes marriage. Shoma does not really care about the issue. She's just grandstanding. Yes. Now, I don't agree with you. As a model, it's fine, but not legally. Yes, and I'm saying that so that the morality remains, उसके लिए ये legality भी चाहिए कि marriage cannot be treated as anything other than raising kids.
Because we have all seen how laws are made in Parliament, how much the courts do not, right? Now, that's simply not true, because we have all seen how laws are made in Parliament, how much, and many things are displayed, not necessarily expertise. Now, also when we...
Yes, if we really were talking about expertise, even Barack Obama would not win Nobel Prize, Abhijit Banerjee would not win Nobel Prize, only Sanjeev Sanyal would win Nobel Prize, Vivek Debroy would win Nobel Prize, okay? All these brilliant economic advisors or economists who have been giving 15-20% GDP growth rates in dirt poor African countries, इन लोगों को कभी Nobel Prize नहीं मिलता है, ठीक है? Expert कौन है वो हम सबको पता है. तो अगर एक्सपर्टीज के बेसिस पे पार्लियामेंट में लॉज पास होते तो पूरे पार्लियामेंट में एक भी मार्क्सिस्ट को अंदर घुसने नहीं दिया जाता. जो भी बोलेगा फ्रीबीज देंगे उसको निकाल दो पार्लियामेंट से. तो इट्स नॉट लाइक वी आर सेइंग इट्स 100% बेस्ड ऑन एक्सपर्टीज, बट व्हाट यू पीपल कंसीडर एक्सपर्टीज, लेफ्टिस्ट, वैसा एक्सपर्टीज थोड़ा बहुत है पार्लियामेंट में. तो बी हैप्पी विद दैट.
See the role of the court. They may not have the same expertise that Parliament has, but we expect courts to decide complicated questions. Now, Sai is a brilliant IP lawyer. They discuss and decide matters of immense scientific complexity and patterns. They decide massively important questions on financial issues, on the economy. If those judges can have the expertise to decide those complicated questions, then surely a question as to whether an opposite sex couple can have the same rights to adopt, to live, to have a joint bank account, to have.
Yes, because some things have this much of implications, some things have this much of implications. Okay, not everything has the same amount of implications, so same magnitude of implications.
Insurance to have the recognition of society can also be put for a same-sex couple. Now that does not require real expertise. That doesn't even require empathy. That just requires some basic constitutional common sense. So I don't think, and look, there is some merit in asking courts to step away from issues that are in the political thicket. There is some reason to say courts must not jump into every issue. I'm not one of those people who say just because the matter in a cause is brought to court, the court must get in and decide it willy-nilly without being aware of their own basic, some inherent limitations. But when a cause comes which relates to fundamental rights, then it is no longer a luxury for the courts to say, I will not decide this. It is then part of the constitutional obligation. It is a part of a judge's oath of office to decide that question in terms of what the fundamental rights of the Constitution say. That brings us now to the second leg of the argument, which is that where do we draw the line? Now, that line inherently, of course, is subjective. But all law is at some level subjective. All constitutional values are at some level subjective. That which was accepted 50 years ago, 100 years ago, is not necessarily accepted today. Now, the words of the Constitution don't necessarily change. For instance, and you said that you have to keep on coming back to court again and again, where is the objectivity in that? Our Constitution recognizes caste-based reservations under Articles 15 and 16 of the Constitution. It permits that. Now, those two clauses of the Constitution about what equality means have engaged the court in the most complicated jurisprudence from 1950 till 2023. Views change of society and courts as to what equality truly means. Does it allow for reservations? Should certain castes be included in those quotas? Should a person who was a Hindu but then converted to Christianity, should they be allowed to have reservations? Now, these are complicated questions which we seem to have no problem if the courts decide because of these reservations, because that is the nature of judicial decision making. And
that's allowed for judges to ponder over, because in parliament everyone knows no matter what decision we take, we are going to lose some votes. Isliye, so let's make marriage also as important as caste based freebies getting jobs, etc., so that people so that people have serious discussions about it and not just leave it to judges. Okay, people should fear making decisions on marriage with the same magnitude. Let me check some comments once again. Lots of comments. All the expertise is with judges according to them. No, I don't agree with you with kids part. As a model it is fine, but not legally. Yeah, if two gays want to have a family, like unite and adopt a child and live with their family and values, their intention to have a family like heteros. Yeah, the problem with that, as I said, is I have not decided fully, because ideally for a kid one father and one mother is ideal, but we see so many parents are bad parents even and raise bad kids with even one father and one mother at home. And then there are so many kids in orphanages because one father and one mother abandoned that kid. So there might be an argument in favor of letting gay people adopt. Okay. Unlike live-in relationship, Gandharva Vivaha doesn't allow to leave your partner whenever one desires. Rather, she becomes your wife and you have to fulfill the responsibilities of marriage. I see. Sai is a brilliant IT lawyer is not a compliment. It's an attempt at discrediting expertise on the topic. Yes. Better than unelected elites, the elected representatives get more rights to decide. Yeah. There was no conception of separation or divorce. Yes, exactly this is what I meant, having strict discipline. मेरे को तो समझ नहीं आ रहा है ये क्या चल रहा है. मेरी तो शादी भी नहीं हुई. Good catch, but I think he was sincere in his attempt to disprove Sai's attempt. I have a server based on Ghar Wapsi mission. Not having divorce laws on today's date will be a disaster. I was just stating a fact. Yeah, India can try to improvise and implement foster system. Yeah, foster system. So it has not solved any problem in USA. Okay, people have still been having overflowing the foster care system, but their problem is that they have glorified having sex before 18 so much. They have glorified abortion to such an extent. So isliye foster care system is going up. I mean, if we have legal abortion, so we might not have so much problem with the foster care system. Why are we hellbent on replicating the mistakes the West did? How to incentivize marriage again? Women around me are unwilling to marry in future because generational trauma. They don't want to go through what their mother went through. Yeah, what their mother went through, that is also a premise that they have come up with just because of watching a lot of Netflix and Amazon. In my opinion, the problem about this same-sex marriage comes from the idea of achieving equity among sexes, not realizing how that affects families and communities. Women are affected first because of feminism. Yes.
That is the nature of our constitution. We hope this country will endure for the next 100, 500,000 years. The constitution is what we have. Its words are written in stone. But if we tie ourselves down with that stone, we'll sink with it. We have to accept that some of the terminology used in the constitution is inherently elastic. We have to trust the intelligence, the goodwill of our judges to be able to interpret those words so as to give justice to those citizens which they are obliged to under the constitution. We trust parliamentarians, and as Sai says, I'm not one of those people who thinks that everything parliament does is wrong. We trust parliamentarians, but we must also trust the judges. Put the same faith in the judges that the constitution makers in 1950 did. Put the same faith in the judges that virtually every constitutional democracy across the world, US, the European
हाँ, यूएस ना, यूएस में एक और चीज होता है, ठीक है, उसको हम जुड़ी कहते हैं. जुड़ी. तो 10-15 लोगों को बुलाओ, सब आके ज्ञान देने दो सीजीआई चंद्रचूड़ को. सब आके ज्ञान देने दो कि नुपुर शर्मा का गलती है कि नहीं है. ठीक है, जुड़ी सिस्टम इग्नोर करके जजेस कितने अच्छे हैं ये बोल रहे हैं. अजीब बात है. Foster system in USA is disaster because of their societal attitude that's highly different from ours. Yeah, true. I wouldn't say that just because they have a foster system problem, we would have the same problem. Yeah, I agree here. Give preference to couples for adoption, not just kids, but also pets. No. Kids and pets are not same again, because it takes a different temperament and different dhairya, okay, patience to raise kids than pets. Again, I would not mix those two up. How do I trust the intelligence of judges well knowing they are how they are selected? Exactly.
Union, everyone, every place, we trust our judges to come to the aid when Parliament gets it wrong.
Along with the help of jury.
And Parliament does sometimes get it wrong.
You know, Sai, I just Saurabh, I'm going with Sai's argument. I'm going to play back to you in the next round. Some of the times when the
I hope the fastest fingers first.
yeah, when the courts have got it wrong. But before that, Sai, you took it down into some very complex parts. First of all, you said that there's a religious issue at stake. Now, in your books, you have been arguing that we have to decolonize our brain. We have to go with our civilizational ethos. We've been showing just a few of them. But if you go even with the Hindu civilizational ethos, Hindu civilization has had absolutely no problem with any color or any facet of the human experience. In fact, Varun and Mitra are same-sex couple that gave birth to Vashishta, and we can laugh when it suits us, but it's Vashishta and Agastya. Vishnu fell in love with Shiva fell in love with Vishnu, and that union as Mohini gave birth to Ayappa, which is the Sabrimala deity, which is such a huge fight in the public space. You have references in the Kama Sutra to lesbian couples that raise children together. And you can go to Khajuraho, you can go to other texts. Khajuraho, there's a beautiful, I wanted to show it, but I was a bit edgy about it, but please go Google it. There's this amazing, beautiful image of women making love on the frieze of the Khajuraho temple. So when you say it's religious, again, I'll quote back to you. You said the Hindu religion is like an ocean in which there are seas and rivers and ponds and multitudes. So who's going to decide which is religious? You said brothers and sisters should not be in a relationship, hopefully. But in Kerala and elsewhere, the uncle is perfectly legitimate as a marriage partner. In the north, that would be scandal. So do you agree that you are walking a very slippery slope? You said, where should the red lines be?
Right.
Who will be the arbiter of that?
Okay. So there are 3 levels of responses here. I'm very happy with the examples you just quoted. First, I think Mr. Kirpal has misunderstood my point. Let me clarify this. I'm never going to admit that the judiciary has the power but not the expertise. That's not my position. My very clear position is neither do they have the power nor do they have the expertise on the subject, is my very clear position. I'm not making a concession here at all. It's surprising that a court which yields to a legislative policy or executive policy on taxation, on defense-related issues, on all these issues, if this court or let's say the judiciary is blessed with all the wisdom that we impute to it, what happened in 75 to 77? These were instances where, on the one hand, we are being accused of fetishizing the legislature.
Justice Ranjan Gogoi heard a case against him. Do you remember that? He was accused of sexual harassment and he gave judgment of whether he really sexually harassed someone or not. That's the kind of judiciary we are running.
Have there been no instances?
That was, as a
No,
good
no,
moderator,
I'll have to make
that was a
myself-
rhetorical
No,
question.
no, I have to
That's
make-
a submit.
No, no,
that's
there's a point here. There's a point here
that's
to be
not a
made here.
judicial
When we
question.
actually make the point
Rhetorical
that the judiciary makes no mistakes, who came out with the first decision on the NAS Foundation? It is the product of advocacy between 2013 and 2019 that you were able to change hearts and minds even with respect to Section 377.
Yes, that is what I've been saying from the beginning of this live stream, that convince people, persuade people. I was not forever against I was not forever pro homosexuality. I was against homosexuality until about 2011 or 12. Then I went to seminars and had my mind changed because of great arguments from gay people. Then the country by large has also changed its minds to a large extent and is now not against homosexuality too much. When I was a kid, I have heard stories of people getting beaten up for being gay. Today, you won't hear those stories that people got beaten up for being gay. Okay, effeminate people walk around openly, even in mofussil towns, not because of gay rights or transgender rights or wokeism. No, the society just stop giving a shit about it. Okay, especially in Mumbai, when there is capitalism, people think more about money than about your personal life. Those things get eliminated even faster. My transgender friends, my gay friends have a nice life in Mumbai. They say no, not one fucking guy gives a shit in Mumbai. Okay, not your landlord, not your neighbor, no one. So capitalism chahiye, that's a big argument anyway. But persuasion and convince karna, isko bypass karna nahi chahiye kabhi bhi. Because I'm also saying that I'm open to listening to great arguments why gay marriage is absolutely great, and why marriage as a thing just for raising kids with a mother and father at home, that should be bypassed. Give me a great argument.
Who came out with the first decision on the NAS Foundation? It is the product of advocacy between 2013 and 2019 that you were able to change hearts and minds even with respect to Section 377. And I am the one who's asking you to put more faith in your advocacy. Second, are we saying that a court makes no mistakes? There have been instances where fundamental rights, which were otherwise meant to be protected, have been suspended by the very same court. When they were asked to bend, they crawled, is the very same language that's been used previously when it comes to even rights such as habeas corpus. So I don't think we should actually be making these statements with respect to the fact that the judiciary makes no mistakes or the judiciary has absolutely no subject which is beyond the scope of its remit or expertise. Of course there are. Now coming to the question of IP or any of these subjects, these are under very specific legislations where they have the power to do so. The question when it comes to this question is, this issue is whether they have the power. That itself is the issue.
Sai, may I step in here?
Yes.
Because I don't want to go down too many of the tertiary parts. Let's
Right.
stick to the core.
Yes. When counter arguments come, then she doesn't want to go into tertiary paths, but otherwise she's all into tertiary paths. Okay, let me check some comments again. India needs to both NJSC and jury, honestly. Yeah, seems like it. What the fuck was that zoom in? I could not sleep. Yeah, good. Dada, Addar Ayojan Karo. Yeah, I have some plans. Dada, when are you getting married now? Married, by the way. Someday soon. Okay. Thanks a lot. Jai Hind dosto. He gifted memberships to many people. Interesting. Okay. Kirpal has a Swiss partner. Yeah, I think he has some shady deals, I guess. So apart from Prajapati Vivah, were other Vivah unions or marriages? तो मैरिज का ट्रांसलेशन तो हमको पता है कि विवाह है, तो आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में क्या है पता नहीं, कोई हिंदुइज्म का एक्सपर्ट को बोलना पड़ेगा. खजुराहो seems to be what everything falls back to. Yeah, that's the problem. सब कुछ है खजुराहो के केव में है, खजुराहो के वॉल पे है, तो जो खजुराहो के वॉल पे है वो सब हम करेंगे. तो वॉल में जो युद्ध का बात लिखा है, सब लोग युद्ध करते फिर रहे, वो युद्ध भी करे, जिसको आज एनिमी लगे उसको मार के निकाल दे देश से, जो अम्बेडकर ने रिकमेंड भी किया था कि पॉपुलेशन एक्सचेंज, वो सब कर ले, जो जहां पे मेंशन है. इसलिए आज कोई डिबेट नहीं चाहिए उसके लिए. अजीब बात है. और वैसे भी खजुराहो में जो दिखाया गया है वो एलिट्स का था. एलिट्स हमेशा ही अपने में बहुत वो चीजें करते हैं. that was not accepted in the commoner's life. Okay, so elites are doing what they want anyway because they have the money power to get away with things. Uh, if the Khajuraho that the life that Khajuraho describes in its walls, if it was practiced by everyone in the country, everyone would die of STD. Okay, in the US, judges are appointed by the president. Will the Indian judges agree to it? Great point. The biggest achievement of Donald Trump is that he filled the Supreme Court with conservative judges who will not retire until they die in their bed and go to the grave. Okay, that's why Democrats are very pissed off with Trump. That I am saying that married couples should get preference over unmarried couples or singles. I think they do already in a way. Khajuraho walls show the decadence of the world. That's not an endorsement. अरे this lady is like Satyavati from Mahabharat. भोज से लाओ लड़की क्या ही हो जाएगा. Have we really run out of real issues that we are now addressing such ludicrous issues in courts? Let's be fair. It is an important issue for both sides. Actually, it's an important issue for them because they think they are being denied the right to get married, and it's an important issue for us, for me personally, to say that no, this should not be encouraged. This should not be celebrated. Marriage should be a specific institution just for raising kids with a mother and father in the home. So it's important for both sides basically. Pratik Borade has exposed them beautifully with references from Hindu texts. Yeah, their minds are in America. Yeah, too much for more opinionated leftists to comprehend. Khajuraho walls never depicted homosexual sex with males, and yeah, it was life of luxurious people. Yeah, LGBTQIA plus reservation incoming in next years if these people become a vote bank. Yes, 100%. And if ESG keeps becoming a significant factor in Indian industries, which it already is. All Indian companies, not Indian companies, American companies which function in India to a large extent, like Deloitte, etc. Okay, all of them are going to have ESG compulsions, and ESG compulsions are going to come up with absolutely insane demands. LGBTQIA को लेके बोर्ड भर दो, मुस्लिम्स को ले लो, सिर्फ दलित को ही CEO बनाना है, ऐसे डिमांड्स करोगे तो तब कौन बचाएगा तुमको? Like they argue for wearing revealing clothes that Ma Kali is naked. Yeah, but Ma Kali carries a severed head too. Yeah, I hope you don't ask for that. Yes, I'm not against revealing clothes up to a limit though. Yeah, and each and every of our gods have some goddamn weapon. और हम जब weapon लेना चाहेंगे हमको बोलोगे कि नहीं डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट ने तो अलाउ नहीं किया, नहीं वो इतना पॉट बेली वाला पुलिस के पास जाके तुमको चलाना है, बंदूक चलाना सीखना है भोसरी के. हाँ, तो गॉड्स जो करेंगे हम सबको वो सब कुछ करना अलाउड है क्या? Kirpal was denied a judgeship by the judiciary because he was homosexual, and now they are blaming Hinduism. I don't get it. Why was he not allowed for being gay? What was the argument there? तुम रात को जाके एक लड़के के साथ सोते हो इसलिए तुम अच्छा जजमेंट नहीं दे पाओगे. I don't get this argument. Bro, why midnight? Because I'm a musician. It's fun for me to stay up at night and do music. Sir, যতবার ভাবি বাঙালির নামে অপমান সহ্য করব না, এরা কোনো সুযোগই দেয় না, অপমানটা আমাদেরই হয়. Why? Which Bengali are you talking about? Oh, Shoma Chaudhury. Is she Bihari Chaudhury? Chaudhury Sahab wala? Because her spelling seems to be a non-Bengali Chaudhury. Or is she actually Bengali?
which
Right,
is
right.
about how does society change,
Right, right.
Let me put back to you, and here maybe I'm presuming, but I feel both of you are not, you're saying, does the courts never make a mistake? I don't think that's Saurabh's position. That can
Right.
never be anybody's positions. I mean, it's the Supreme Court that actually overturned the Delhi High Court
Right.
ruling on 377. I mean, it was that backward, and
Right.
I'll use that word.
Right.
But let me come back to something which I think is fundamentally at stake.
Harshvardhan, the health minister of BJP, he openly said we have no problem with homosexuality.
Here,
Right.
which is the fundamental rights of individuals. And here again, I would pose to you, is there a huge gap in your understanding of a democracy and his? And I'll ask him as well. You say that no individual's rights should supersede the rights of a community. That is not our constitutional position.
I'm not sure where you're getting this position from.
Sorry?
I'm not sure where you're getting this position from.
There's a
I'm not
Wow, this is insane. Do you all think this is deliberate, guys? We really need to have this talk about this conspiracy theory. Every time Jay Sai Deepak makes a blazing argument, Shoma Chaudhury says, kya bola? How is this happening every time?
You say that no individual's rights should supersede the rights of a community. And I'll ask
Look at this
pose
argument.
to you, is there a huge gap in your understanding of a democracy and his? And I'll ask him as well. You say that no individual's rights should supersede the rights of a community. That is not our constitutional position.
I'm not sure where you're getting.
Yeah. Who told you, Shoma Chaudhury? This is like saying Hinduism is liberal, Hinduism is regressive when you have just read 4 or 5 quotes from Bhagavad Gita, okay? She is such an expert on constitution that she knows that constitution definitely doesn't allow individualism over that the constitution definitely says that individualism is preferable to the society at large. So how is everything subject to public morality? Her law is each and every law is said that subject to public morality. So public morality क्या है? Individual है.
getting this position from.
Sorry?
I'm
Sorry.
not sure where you're getting this position from.
There's a
I'm
board
not sure where you're getting this position from.
where I'm hearing that position
Yes.
from. It could be wrongly reported on Google, so forgive me. But here, the fundamental right is that two people in love want to marry. And Article 14, 15, 19, and 21, as we've said,
Right.
says that there will be no discrimination on people's rights insofar as their gender, caste, status, money, sex, identity. Right? So this is something so
तो इसमें से कौन से में होमोसेक्सुअलिटी स्पेसिफाई किया गया है? ये जो कैटेगरीज बोला गया, और वैसे भी टू पीपल आर इन लव, तुमको क्या है? दैट्स अगेन आर्गुमेंट दैट शी इज रिटर्निंग टू, राइट? तुमको क्या है? तो मुझे तो ये है कि वो मैरिज का भोसड़ा हो जाएगा और फिर ग्लोरीफाई हो जाएगा बीइंग गे एंड बीइंग ट्रांसजेंडर, वो मेरा प्रॉब्लम है. बट अदर देन दैट, if two people are just in love, why the fuck do they need tax benefits? Just being love is the main argument, right? Then let them be in love, let them go to nice parks and dates and hang out without getting harassed, let them have sex as much as they want. They are in love. No, let me check some comments once again. দাদা পুজোয় আমাদের নিয়ে একদিন প্ল্যান করো না. হ্যাঁ ভাবছি. I identify as a Scorpion missile launch open career. Sir, যতবার Agastya and Vashishta are sons of Mitra and Urvashi. Seriously, Didi kuch bhi. Mitra और Varuna भी है, gay नहीं. Kirpal was rejected for his leftist view, and his partner is foreign national. That was the government side people were saying. But in my eyes, he was rejected for his closeness with Chandrachud. अरे बाप रे, हर कोई अलग-अलग reason दे रहा है. Bro, now I can't sleep now because I wouldn't want to watch your stream. Okay, no sir, she's Bengali. I see. Huge gap in your understanding of democracy. Chandrachud was made judge by Kirpal's father. So Chandrachud was returning favor and might elevate Chandrachud's son. Government may have thought like this. कितना speculation करना पड़ रहा है हमको. Every time a debate regarding religion occurs, only counter is caste.
so fundamental. This is not an expertise issue. It's not a jurisdiction issue. A small group of people or a large group of people feel that their fundamental rights are not being granted to them. And it is not
कोई भी आदमी दिमाग में अगर लेफ्टिस्ट है, कुछ भी फंडामेंटल राइट घोषणा कर सकता है. उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि वो फंडामेंटल राइट बन गया. मुझे लगता है मेरा फंडामेंटल राइट है कि मुझे 2 लाख का नॉयमैन U87 का माइक चाहिए, मगर मैं भोसरी का 80-20-20 यूज कर रहा हूं, तो वो हो गया फंडामेंटल राइट. जो जिंदगी में आए, जो जी में आए, फंडामेंटल राइट नहीं हो सकता है.
impinging on anyone else. Why is there resistance?
Okay,
You haven't
there are two
answered
issues.
that.
There are two aspects. First, let's go to the Hindu example. Should I bring it up? Okay. It's convenient that we choose to bring about the liberality of Hinduism when it suits us, and then Hinduism becomes the subject of certain other discussions when caste is the issue. Anyways, we'll come back to the point. The point is this. I don't think we understand the role of the judiciary in a constitutional democracy, its interplay with the legislature or its interplay with the society in the first place. You're basically telling me that with respect to the creation of a right, this is not recognition of a right, this is also the creation of a particular right.
How? It's the recognition of a right.
Marriage
The right to
is
marry.
not just, marriage at the end of the day has to be recognized by law. You can choose to call yourself married. Unless and until the law recognizes it in some form, it has absolutely no sanctity. So the question is about legal recognition. If it is about legal recognition, this is primarily within the remit of the legislature. Your entire argument has been, I choose to proceed on the basis that the bulk of the majority is against my position. I will not make any further efforts in trying to convince them otherwise. I have not set the ball rolling on the legislature. I don't intend to. I'd rather use the judiciary to get the job done. My entire position has been, it's not just about this particular issue. If tomorrow every other disgruntled litigant on issues which are close to their heart or causes which are close to their heart chooses to use the court to get the job done and completely relegates the legislature to the margins, what exactly is this democracy that you're actually talking about? If you're telling me that we need to protect the concept of a democracy, how is this democracy going to be protected if the legislature has absolutely no role in it? Where are members of the society going to get their say with respect to their concerns on this particular issue? Not every concern that has an opinion on this particular subject is necessarily homophobic or stands in the way of marriage. They want answers to certain questions.
No, I stand against in the way of marriage. But yes, everyone can have pet projects. I have many pet projects like defunding sociology, making gun rights more liberal, and banning beef. So सब मेरा pet project लेके क्या मेरे MP के पास जाऊं कि सीधा चंद्रचूड़ के पास जाऊं?
Reducing this particular issue to its most not simple form, its simplistic form to say this is all about equality. Sorry, it's not just about equality. It is about creation of further rights, because the bulk of the petitioners who are before the court are people who are asking for the right of adoption. And when they ask for these rights, there is a third party who is necessarily involved. There are institutions which have been created under the law for the protection of the rights of that particular third party who cannot speak for himself or herself. Are we saying that they don't need to be heard on this particular subject at all? On matters of science, on matters of taxation, on matters of even handwriting, court appoints experts. Are you telling me on such a serious issue, which talks about the creation of a social institution, not just an individual institution, the court doesn't need to hear experts? Ask yourself, in the 3 months or the 4 months or the 2 months of hearings took place before this court, which expert was heard by the court? What expert affidavits or opinions were sought by the court? Now, this is an institution which supposedly knows better than the legislature. If the legislature moots a certain proposal, there are parliamentary committees which are appointed. There are experts whose opinions are sought. Which expert opinion, other than the litigants' opinions, have been sought even in this matter by the members of the bench or this particular court? Ask yourself.
Oh, fuck! ये argument कोर्ट में दे देता तो वहीं पे खेल खलास हो जाता. Okay, let me check some comments again. Every time, yeah, cast. I have seen posters like Allah loves equality and rainbow over saffron. Simultaneously, মানে দাবিটা কি? এদের এক ফোঁটা কিছু আছে ঘটে. Okay. Democracy is like two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. A bit unfair. Needs are not necessarily rights. By the way, second floor construction underway. Hey bhai, love you. Suraj Kant. Thanks. Long time no see, Suraj Kant. You can have judiciary making making the laws. That I have gun license, not joking. Oh, nice. वो लाइसेंस भी हमको गिफ्ट कर दो, जस्ट लाइक वो मेंबरशिप गिफ्ट किया आज. श्रीहरि बटला हल्ली. I invite the same set of people to direct the same intense questions to one of the private petitioners from Shanti Dut's community. Pretty sure he would have only one response saying blasphemy. Yes. 30 watching record. Yes. Thanks guys. Thanks for joining this live stream. Rights framework is itself faulty. There should not be any rights without duties. Okay, we need to have this discussion a little bit. Okay, small digression, because 34 people are watching live, which is the highest in my live stream history. Rights cannot happen without taking note of how many duties you perform. And what is my basis for saying that? That happens anyway. When people do more for the society in any direct or indirect way, they end up having more rights, because a neta और a big scientist, big professor, big film actors, इनका जो कॉन्टैक्ट्स बन जाता है, जिसके बेसिस पे ये लोग किसी ना किसी नेता को या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के ऑफिसर को फोन करके बोलते हैं कि अच्छा वहां मेरा जरा बेटे का भर्ती करवा दो, वो जरा टिकट करवा दो. ये सब क्या है? इनका ये राइट्स आ गया है. द सोसाइटी हैज एक्सेप्टेड इट कि ये तो बड़े आदमी है, इनका वैसा कॉन्टैक्ट हो गया है, अब क्या करे. And because he has contributed more to the society, I'm saying yes, make it legal as fuck, because otherwise you are just discriminating against the people who have that same same qualification, or maybe deserve that same getting the ticket, or maybe getting their kids admitted somewhere, but they by chance don't have that contacts. Those people are getting discriminated against unfairly. So make it legal. Just say इतना duties perform करोगे, इतना rights मिलेगा. सबका सब rights चाहिए, एक भी duties नहीं perform करोगे except just giving voting on the voting day, तब नहीं चलेगा. Rights without duties is absolutely bullshit. And वैसे भी I love how Ambedkar started his famous speech called Annihilation of Caste. He said that अरे हम सब लोग ये लिबर्टी इक्वालिटी बोलते फिर रहे, फ्रेटर्निटी कहाँ गया? फ्रेटर्निटी का बात ही नहीं हो रहा है, सब भूल गए. लिबर्टी इक्वालिटी फ्रेटर्निटी था, तो फ्रेटर्निटी कहाँ से आएगा? फ्रेटर्निटी भी परफॉर्म करना है, ब्रदरहुड परफॉर्म करना है. सबको शत्रु की तरह देखोगे तो नहीं चलेगा. ओके, और एंड फ्रेटर्निटी का पार्ट ये भी है कि मैं तुम्हारे गॉड को डिसरेस्पेक्ट नहीं करूंगा और तुम मेरे गॉड को डिसरेस्पेक्ट करके कुक करके खा नहीं लोगे. That's part of fraternity. Okay, let me check some comments again. Rights framework itself is faulty. I identify as an ambulance. My pronouns are we, woo. Respect me, or you are acting against the constitution, and that will happen. You will go to jail pretty soon if you say these things on my comment section. If we allow people to glorify these things and celebrate these things by saying that अरे तुम्हारा क्या जाता है, उसको आइडेंटिफाई करना है एम्बुलेंस के तौर पे, तुम्हें क्या है? यही आर्गुमेंट दिया गया था यूएसए में आज से 5-10 साल पहले तक. Marriage is not a fundamental right. Marriage is a social contract. I believe cow slaughter should be banned. Beef consumption will automatically be down to high price. Yes, absolutely. Riot law caveat with gun laws is ridiculous. Yes. JSG देखने के लिए सब आ गए. Yes. JSG has become a cult hero. Absolutely what we needed. Yes. How can we, although I don't agree with JSG on everything, how can we use our numerical majority for dharmic benefit but prevent benefit for adharmis if by any chance we become minority? Not needed. We just have to be positivist. We have to say this is what we need for us. इसमें किसी का प्रॉब्लम हो कि नहीं हो, वो हमारा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. How can marriage be a fundamental right? If it is so, then anyone could ask the court to get them married to Angelina Jolie because he believes that it is somehow his fundamental right. Yeah, I think we need a change in terminology. Instead of rights, we should talk about freedoms. Yeah. We can't do this because we believe in live and let live. Yes. If judiciary was enough to decide on this topic, then why the hell would you have to even have this debate? The answer is societal scrutiny of any idea to rise to become a norm. Yes. Duties before rights. Yes.
This question. Now, assuming for a moment.
May I draw him into it?
Please go. Yes.
So, Saurabh, you want to take on some of those questions. First of all, there are two that I can zero in on. One is about judicial activism, and he's saying that the judiciary just can't keep stepping in and overturning or usurping the right of parliament. Do you
And they're repeatedly doing this. Farm laws में questioning हो गया, CA में CA का तो ambiguous है ही, 370 सुन रहे, ये सब सुनने का बात क्यों है? पार्लियामेंट ने किया है, end of story, सबका sanction है वहां पे.
think that that's a valid argument? And number two, this, I don't necessarily want to go into the process and procedurals because that's so easy. But why don't you take on that? Because he was being animated that the court has not sought the opinion of psychologists or those who could maybe represent the voice of unborn children, that will they be safe in a same-sex marriage home? Why don't you take on those two questions?
No, this is not about safety. I didn't say that. I think that's
the rights of the child. You
rights
said.
of the child from the
Or the
perspective.
interest of the child, let's put it.
That's all.
As neutrally
Safety of the
possibly
child leads it in a very different direction. I'm not going the territory at all. Mr. Kirpal knows what I'm talking
Shoma Chaudhury tried to strawman J fucking Sai Deepak. Okay. These leftists का एक मजेदार चीज है कि ये लोग समझते नहीं है कि क्या औकात है किसका किसके सामने. मैं जानता हूं मेरा क्या औकात है. मैं अभिजीत बैनर्जी को क्रिटिसाइज कर सकता हूं इकोनॉमिक्स पे. मैं कभी उनके साथ सामने डिबेट में नहीं जाऊंगा. कहां का क्या क्या टर्मिनोलॉजी निकाल के बोलेगा नहीं देखो सोशलिज्म कितना अच्छा है. सोमा चौधरी का ये ह्यूमिलिटी नहीं है. सोच लिया कि जय दीपक के सामने बैठ के उसको स्ट्रॉमैन कर दूंगा और वो मान लेगा चुपचाप बैठ के. सेफ्टी का इशू है. ठीक है. शी इज हिंटिंग दैट gay people might molest those kids and rape those kids. Is that, and that's what Jai Deepak is bringing up. Let me check some comments. Yes, Puchka. Shoma is just there to block Jay's flow of thought. All rights should be removed and only, yeah. I'll read the comment later.
That's not the issue at all here. I'm not on the safety of the child. Well-being is different from safety. Let's not conflict the two.
I assure you, I don't take offense so seriously.
Yes, well-being. A mother and father is necessary, proven by any study in the world. All rights should be removed and only duty in our constitution. Punishment is based strictly on. अच्छा वो हार्ट साइन आ गया है कमेंट के ऊपर, मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है. आई कांट रीड द बॉटम मोस्ट कमेंट. ओके, फ्रॉम माय फोन. when it goes higher up, I'll be able to read it. Neenar, okay.
Anyone who's grown up gay for 50 years doesn't take offense seriously. Right? We're used to a lot worse, and you, and my friend, are not a bad man. At least no matter what. So the question is, the argument is that courts are being asked to create a social institution when they do not have the expertise or the power to do so. Well, I'm afraid that's simply not true, because that social institution of marriage already exists. A vast majority of you are married,
in which homosexuals are not included. जो include करने के लिए ये पूरा debate हो रहा है.
I'm not saying create a concept which does not exist. What we are saying is, here is a social institution which, as you said, amends 600 laws, because 600 laws exist to give a right to that particular social institution.
हाँ, सब rights का ही चक्कर है.
Please extend the same protection of the laws, of those 600 laws, which are good enough for straight people. Please extend the same social institution to those who are otherwise, in any case, disempowered.
No, because that social institution is what a very specific thing which cannot be performed by gay people.
Now, I
बाकी सब rights ले लो, कोई problem नहीं है. सिर्फ ये law छोड़ दो.
take an example about how this is not a creation of a social institution. I draw the memory of your audience into what happened in the US in the 60s. And what used to happen in certain parts of India, that certain groups of people were not permitted to get married. Not just brothers and sisters. Those are interesting examples and make for good debating points. But the reality is that larger numbers of people were stopped from getting married, namely people from between different castes or within the Gotra, as the Sagotra marriages were prohibited. Right? So technically, or indeed, as I said, the US, where a black man and a white woman couldn't get married. There were anti-miscegenation laws. So there was a social institution which existed, but people were arbitrarily excluded from that social institutions as because of their innate characteristics, race, caste, subcaste, etc. Now, each of these, I think we would agree.
Okay. Arbitrarily है कि नहीं है, वो debate में हम नहीं जाना चाहते हैं. मगर इंडिया के context में caste and racism is not the same thing, right? Again, people who are saying that he's centrist and rightist, see, he's equating casteism with racism. That's an 100% Western white liberal perspective, okay? But even other than that, if casteism was really not, we did not wait for people to be convinced of not following casteism, right? तो उससे क्या हो गया? People ने endogamy बंद कर दिया? नहीं किया. तो convincing people is still better. Maybe yes, legal protection मिल जाता है, कोई आके जेल में नहीं भेज देगा, मगर उसके पहले भी, I mean, when was it illegal last? Many years back. So I think convincing people will be better, because the society won't follow it anyway.
That courts were right to step in and say, no, you cannot stop people from a different caste from getting married, and would intervene and say this social institution, people of all castes should have access to. Now, what our argument in court was is that a question of gender and sexuality is very similar to caste. Just as you cannot block access to the privileges, rights that a straight couple has by virtue of their gender and their sex, that same privilege must also be extended.
It's not the same. Letting people from different castes marry is not the same as letting two men get married, because the fundamental question about marriage is having kids. Now, casteism based marriage might have been relevant at some point, because as I have said multiple times, it happens today as well. Virat Kohli is no way going to marry someone from my neighborhood. Okay, Virat Kohli is marrying in his caste basically. Okay, most academics marry other academics, most musicians, most artists marry other artists. Okay, most politicians who are like the kings etc marry famous models etc. Okay, तो people are following casteism anyway. वो जो casteism था उसको हम लीगली आज हमने डिबंक किया है, मगर वो कास्टिज्म का जो कॉन्सेप्ट था, वो जो मॉडल था, इन रियलिटी वो आज भी फॉलो हो रहा है. ओके, एंड बिकॉज ultimately the main question is whether people in similar social stature get married and raise a kid. होमोसेक्सुअलिटी के केस में ना वो सिमिलर सोशल स्टैचर का कोई डिफरेंशिएशन हो रहा है कि ऐसा नहीं था कि पहले सोशल स्ट्रक्चर में मैरिज होता था, अब नहीं होता है, तो or vice versa. That question is not being pursued here in the homosexuals getting married case. Here the only question is therefore whether two people can raise the kid or not. Okay, one mother and father is in the home to raise the kid or not. That question is not being that question is being approached here, and that is not the same as casteism based marriage getting legalized
to everybody, regardless and irrespective of their sexuality. So that's the argument. It's not the creation of an institution. I certainly am not one of those people who, again, prioritizes or fetishizes the court over every other institution. I don't think the courts get it right every time. Very often they don't. That is why they provide for appeals. You know, if the idea is the judge is always right, there is no question of having a hierarchy of courts. Why have the Supreme Court? Let's just have Mufassil courts, because they'll get it right the first time. We recognize they don't get it right, which is why there is appellate provisions. There is a doctrine of overruling, because no one, save God, is always right. Right? So once we accept that fact, so that argument is not being made by me or indeed anyone else, that the courts always get it right. It is a question of institutional competence and power. And that's correct. I would say that in matters of fundamental rights, where the very dignity of a person is involved, when the identity of a person says, I can no longer get married because my nation abhors me and does not permit me to live freely, openly, and
no, your nation doesn't abhor you. If your nation abhorred you, they would throw you off the top of the buildings. Your nation is telling you, have sex, hang out in parks, go to dates, just don't get married. In the way we understand marriage, live together.
joyously.
Let me check some comments. Lots of comments. I need to check some comments again, okay? Oh, so all rights should be removed and only duties in our constitution. Punishment is based strictly on failure to uphold duties. Yeah, that's one way to go. Kirpal was rejected because he's guess what I chose for gun license. Exactly. Society requires punishment, not justice. Justice is delusional. Librandu Jhandi. Okay. I want to somewhat do everything, real democracy, but I can't take responsibility, though I don't want you to everything, because everything, then it would be a dictatorship. My only problem is that judiciary cannot decide on the issue. Yeah. Kirpal passing out an empathy certificate to JSD now dredges up caste and race. Yes, casta. Yes. Even though I endorse JSD points in entirety, with given change and projection of demographic change, we would be on the other side in the future, asking judiciary to step in as legislature ignores. That demography is also an important factor. कि हम यहाँ gay marriage करके, antenatality, transgenderism करके और फेमिनिज्म करके हमारा फर्टिलिटी रेट ऑलरेडी गड्ढे में जा चुका है और भी गड्ढे में जाता रहेगा, और उस तरफ से लोग 3 बीवियां रखेंगे और 50 बच्चे पैदा करेंगे. Otherwise, I am in 100% in agreement with same-sex marriage between two adults. Yeah, under UCC or Special Marriage Act. Yeah, fair enough. Even that is acceptable to me. If special marriage is approached, UCC तो होगा कब देखते हैं. What do you mean by convincing? Who has the responsibility to convince? Only the concerned party, right? Yes, in matters of by writing books, debates, and columns, etc. But Virat Kohli can marry any consenting adult if he wants to. Yeah, if he wants to, but he won't. When are you getting it? Thomas Sowell said that if we didn't let polygamists redefine marriage, why let the homosexuals do it? Just like we don't ask atheists for asking religious wisdom. कि अच्छा कृष्ण भगवान ने जो कहा, एक एथीस्ट भाई को हम पूछते हैं कि तुम्हारा क्या मत है इस पे, That can't be an argument. Marriage is a religious institution for raising kids, and the moment you separate the two, the moment you separate marriage from religion, the moment you separate marriage from raising kids, all other hell breaks loose. Casta is a Western category just like race. There is mention of race in Indic civilization, yet it's not like Western idea. It's like 11 races of man. Yeah, yeah. If two men are married, I don't know whom are we going to call husband. It has to be resolved first. These are cosmetic problems. किसी को husband बोल देंगे उसमें क्या है, or both are husbands. I think these, yeah, the point comes, Debojit, is if who beats up whom. In terms of domestic violence, that becomes an ambiguous problem. I think these oppressed people need to stay in Islamic nations for 3 months. Yes, my nation abhors me. Kya bol diya? Centrist rightist lawyer. Documentary should be made on why Kirpal was rejected. Literally, nobody agrees on this. Lol. Take a look at S.N. Balagangadhara, who shows that rights discourse devolves from the monotheist concept of God. I see. I don't agree with the Indian state legalize. I don't want the Indian state legalizing same-sex marriage only in Hindu Marriage Act. Yeah, I don't agree with the Indian state legalizing same-sex marriage only in Hindu Marriage Act. Yeah, mainly yes. Let's imagine a situation similar to Rudrama Devi, head of state, a king, was designed as male head, but later woman has to rule the state. Shouldn't the institution and definition be expanded, right? Yeah, for that specific situation. That's why it's a Western thing, and we need to differentiate between Western and Indic culture. He's falsely equating the irrational social hierarchical distinction between castes with biological reality and responsibilities between heterosexuals and homosexuals in the context of marriage and conception. Exactly. The West considers world as Christendom. Yes. Okay, now let's check the video once more, and we'll get back to comment section a little later.
With the person I love, that frames their own sense of self, that touches their fundamental right, their idea of their own existence. And in matters which are so fundamental and personal, the courts don't have merely the right to step in. They have the obligation to step in.
तुम्हारा प्यार करने को कोई नहीं रोक रहा है, ये क्यों समझने में नहीं आ रहा है? प्यार करना है तो मैरिज करना ही है. मैरिज करना है बच्चे के लिए. प्यार, how old is love, guys? When did we start hearing this idea that two people are in love, that's why they get married? I think it was invented after Shakespeare. Marriage is not just for love. Love is now an additional tool or instrument for getting love. वो ठीक है. But how much are love marriages really successful even? Okay, we can't predicate marriage just on love. Love is an additional great factor. I would agree 100%. But we have been getting married for 3,000 years, maybe 2,000 years, at least 2,300 years, 100% definitely, because Arthashastra talks about marriage. तो वो 2300 साल से क्या प्यार मोहब्बत चल रहा था? So just because you love someone doesn't mean you then get to argue my tax benefits and marriage. Then be in love. Who's stopping you?
Right.
Can I?
So, I want to, yeah, unless we're going to make a radically different point, because we are kind of
I have
circling.
just one point. It's indeed surprising that when the question of whether it's the creation of an institution or recognition of an institution is being discussed, we don't wish to highlight the fact that all the material placed by both parties before the court clearly reveal that when the law was being framed, even in the context of the Special Marriage Act, which was meant to facilitate the very same intercaste and interfaith marriages, it was very clearly heterosexual in nature. Therefore, when the question was put to the other side, do you have any material to show that there was any kind of elasticity that was meant to be read into any of these provisions? They did not have an answer. The second question the court specifically asked was this: please tell us, how do you wish to apply the Domestic Violence Act in the context of same-sex marriages? How do you wish us to interpret these provisions? When these very clear questions came from the court, practical operational issues, because I'm not necessarily throwing around the bogey of 600 laws to say, let's stop this. These are very clear issues because there are welfare legislations and protective legislations that have come into existence to protect a particular gender. The question is, how are you going to identify this in the context of these kind of marriages? These are very real questions. We are not in the realm of speculation here.
So, just to keep the audience with us, here's mine. I'm just using the moderator.
I'm not personally bothered about this particular fact. This is a technicality. This is a cosmetic issue. This is not a moral civilizational issue. That who gets screwed when they beat up their spouse in a gay marriage. That's not my concern here. Okay, some important comments have come. Okay, where did Abhay's comment go? Yeah, Abhay is saying, don't you think opposing same-sex marriage will increase transgenderism, gender fluidity, and sex change? I don't know why, Abhay. Because if they don't get married by being gay, will that lead to them further thinking that, okay, now maybe I'm not a man at all, I'm maybe a woman? I don't think that's going to happen. Those things happen for other influences. Reading so much woke literature, woke liberal arts, academia, and TV, popular culture, pop culture, etc. For those things, those things will keep increasing. But as far as marriage is concerned, that needs to be remained sacrosanct. Otherwise, we lose even we even lose the right to call marriage a significant social institution that's based in culture, religion, customs, and raising kids. Agar marriage is just another social contract, then all of those other woke things are encouraged even further. In India, two families get married, not about love. Yeah, parenthood left the chapel. We need to make next gen aware. Simple. Definitely lesser than recognizing and celebrating it. Actually, I saw a gay person who approached the police citing domestic violence, but they were unable to accuse anyone since in domestic violence laws, males can't be victims according to law. He was trashed by his male partner. Yeah, these things can be solved pretty easily. Okay, it has to be made gender neutral, obviously. Then whoever is showing marks of getting beaten up, they will be treated as a victim. ये सब तो फालतू का वो प्रो फेमिनिज्म लॉ बनाया है, उसका साइड इफेक्ट है. अब भुगतो, क्या करें. These people need some milk. Do not give this argument. Left will be quick to dismantle. Nowadays, people are quick to evade duties and overlook morals. Marriage isn't a matter of preference. It's a matter of principle. It's not about what you want. It's about what you can. And I'm afraid homosexual parenthood doesn't exist. They will change sex to participate in heterosexual marriage. उतना प्यार कोई नहीं करता है किसी से भाई कि अपना लंड काट देगा शादी करने के लिए. वो होगा और थोड़ा with other influences. Show me a straight child of a LGBT couple. अमेरिका में बहुत है. And see, I what I'm saying is, it's in an ideal situation, a father and mother is the best thing possible for a kid. But you all know that father and mother have not always raised good children everywhere forever and ever, right? They have been bad parents, or they have been good parents who have just ended up raising bad children. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि फादर एंड मदर हो गया इसका मतलब है कि हर घर में जैसा दीपक पैदा हो जाएगा. वैसा नहीं है. For that, I would not argue that having gay parents definitely means a stupid, dumb fuck or a broken child is raised. But it's less than ideal. So my question is whether we protect the ideal or we make concessions only make concessions the ideal. That's what I'm saying. All these judicial activists come from functional khandans, yet they want to close the door behind them in spite. This is a very beautiful point. All these activists come from great families, educated families, functional families, straight families, elite families, capitalist families. मगर वो सब बाकी किसी के लिए नहीं छोड़ेंगे. Justice Chandrachud logic: gender neutral bathrooms, gender neutral laws. Oh, like Trump said that, yes, I would love to have gender neutral bathrooms. I have to make only one bathroom in my hotels instead of two. Great for me. LGBT couple have a child will dismantle societal ecosystem. This is my point. If it becomes a norm and aspirational model, then it's a problem. If it happens in one or two cases, then it's not the problem. Now, how do you make sure it happens only in one or two cases and not the norm? By saying that marriage is marriage, ये सिर्फ ये चीज के लिए है. Other than that, do whatever you want. That will make sure that some people do end up living together. Some people may, after pursuing some things, do get a kid to adopt, or maybe say that if you are gay, you get married only if you adopt a kid, something like that. Itna agar hassles hoga, then it won't become the social norm. Social norm prevent karna is my fundamental goal, and making it an aspirational model. LGBT couple having America is a dysfunctional society. That is why they need these things like homosexual marriage, cross-cultural adoptions. Yes, it will lead to downstream consequences, not direct ones. AIM says transgenderism stems from deeply ingrained intergenerational homophobia. I don't think, because then it would have happened much earlier. It happened just recently because of pop culture. We need the GDP train to slow down a moment. Financial pressure will decrease sexual needs. अरे भाई ये Maximus को निकालो chat से. कॉमी आ गया. What if one religion randomly declares marriage is allowed? Then we have to allow gay marriage in that religion then. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If the religion randomly allows, and which is probably will never happen, and if they says that there's a consensus, all Maulvis or Purohits sit down and say, yes, see, this is how, in a way, we interpreted Vedas to say that, see, gay marriage is absolutely not a problem, then allow it. But even then, having kids is a factor. You can't naturally have kids in gay marriage. Even then, it might not be. It probably should not be accepted. Japan hasn't fallen to wokeism despite having high GDP and rich pop culture. Do gays identify as gay men, or gays are separate identity? No, they are gay men. I remember as a child, transgenders coming to our houses after a childbirth in our neighborhood, and man, I was so confused. Now imagine growing up around that, so utterly confusing as a kid. Yes, I'm not a commie. Harsh can back me up. We will support LGBTQ marriage if it's only for Muslims and Christians. Yes.
Greatest prerogative to cut you off here, Saurabh, to say that a lot of this will evolve. You know, none of the laws that we've had 60 amendments and more of the Constitution, and a lot of things keep evolving
Right.
as society changes. You know, let's go back to dowry, widow remarriage, child marriage, property rights. You know, I mean, even women's right to their parental and ancestral property changed as recently as 2005. you know.
Through legislature,
through,
judiciary.
through legislature.
Thank you.
But I'm saying that things keep changing and evolving.
Right.
So let's not get into the practicalities of this right now. Let's stick with the principles. I want to bring in a few more because, you know, we're going over the same argument. Do they have right? And it's a fundamental right. Just a couple of points. You've been saying that there is the space for cultural conservatism and that it should have a space in society.
Right.
And if we're going to say that the Constitution is a liberal document, how are conservative people going to express themselves and what are their rights?
Right.
So here I'd like to ask you this question, that where would you draw the line on conservatism? You know, if the Kap Panchayat doesn't want women to go to work or to have a gungat, and don't call me a liberal because I've sat in a train full of 6,000 Muslim clerics and asked them, why will they speak with a woman who's not a Muslim,
Right.
but there's not one other woman in that train that was a peace train going from Deoband to Hyderabad.
Right.
So I don't think that there's anything frozen about the Muslim community or the Hindus. I'm just asking.
Yes, and what did you convince them of doing? Nothing, right? Okay, so what I'm saying is, खाप पंचायत का आर्गुमेंट आ गया यहाँ पे हरियाणा का, जहां से हरियाणा का जो बोला जाता है कि रेप कैपिटल है, टॉक्सिक मैस्कुलिनिटी का कैपिटल है, वहां से ऐसे ऐसे औरत पैदा होते हैं who take on the wrestling community of the world. Okay, let's not forget that they are so against women that that the women of that state, that one state, are equal to the biggest wrestling countries like Russia and USA and yeah, mainly Russia and USA. Okay, let me check some more comments once again. Shoma and Kirpal. Okay, what did Abhay say? Let's say someone comes up with a new religion. Does the traditional definition of marriage change? I don't think having kids can ever be bypassed. Why is asexual a gender? Sex नहीं करना तो मत करो. Identify काहे बनाना है. Okay, intersex and hijras are not transgender. Yes, that is the most important distinction. Trans means trans in any context means it's a mental condition. You just believe you are like that. Okay, like transnational identity, etc. It's not really an identity. So hijras and intersex are definitely not transgender. And when we talk about kinder community, etc., they are intersex, not transgender. So that should not be conflated anyway. Is it true that LGBTQ population is almost 8 crore? How did we even arrive at this number? By simply identifying. Why is asexual a gender? Sex nahi karna to mat karo. No, that's not a gender identity. That's a sexuality identity. Look, Indian transgenders, kinderas are actually intersex people. Yes, very few transgenders in the West. West sense exist here. Yes. Seems like you are cultured. Mughals had a bachabazi culture. Indian eunuchs come from that Mughal slave trade. I see. How many genders do the Indian law recognize? There's the question of others, so it's basically unlimited. Just because Kirpal is using progressive arguments does not make him a leftist. He is using a pre-existing norm in Indian political system to get recognition. No, using progressive arguments literally makes him leftist. Unless you are saying that he is doing just for financial gain. He has randomly just been hired by a group. That's why he's arguing these points and not. He doesn't believe in these things internally. Then if you are arguing that, then I'm with you. Otherwise, making progressive arguments makes you progressive. Making leftist arguments makes you leftist. Calling for unions in every company makes you a leftist. Look at Afghanistan, it's capitalist bachabazi. Kinders are not transgenders. Yes. Hijras are divine. Kendall Jenner is not. Yes. There are Muslim feminists who try to interpret Islam in a feminist way, but there's a limit how much they can whitewash and reinterpret. Yes.
Asking you, when there's all these slippery slides of cultural conservatism, which conservatism?
Okay, this is why I paused, then I forgot about it. ये जो हमेशा प्रॉब्लम इन लोगों को याद आता है कि when does conservatism go too far? क्योंकि हिटलर ने किया था, जो कि सोशलिस्ट था. When does conservatism go too far? ये पूछा जा रहा है. किरपाल को ये नहीं पूछा जा रहा है कि when does LGBTQI agenda get to go too far? Or does it not go too far according to Shoma Chaudhury? That's not being asked here. That's my main question. Only and only conservatives have to give the answer कि when does it go too far? हम गोफार करके इतना खराब काम कर देंगे कि गुजरात में 2002 में दंगा हो जाएगा जिसमें से 250 हिंदू ही मारे जाएंगे हिंदू मेजॉरिटी फैसिस्ट गवर्नमेंट के गोली से. ठीक है, ये दैट्स द आइडिया ऑफ हिंदूज गोइंग टू फार, एंड दैट्स बीइंग आस्क्ड टू जय Deepak. here to learn what the fuck is Muslim feminist. Yes, there are many Muslim feminists. Former argument. Just because Kirpal is using progressive arguments does not make him a leftist. Which is your former argument? If I identify as a girl but marry a girl anyway, will it be same-sex marriage? Yes. Because transgenderism is, I think, allowed in India. Pakistan also has a lot of bachabazi culture, especially in Peshawar side, because of the Afghanis. When does reformation go too far? Yeah, everything goes too far. Magar ye explanation sirf Hindus ko dena hai. Dada, by the way, why do American conservatives bring up safe children when it comes to transgenderism? Because transgenderism activists are now going into schools doing drag shows, drag queen strip dancing, and teaching in their books that there is no such thing as a gender. Some states have even stopped saying, pointing out the gender in their birth certificates, which is going to definitely confuse children from the very first day in their lives. That is why children saving children is a context there. We need to drop the word progressive and start using the word clueless. No, you presented two explanations. Doesn't trans require sex change operation? Not necessarily. They can identify and then go ahead with it sometime later. Explanation. My position is the first one. But there's a limit how much. Wait. Where did Ruthvik's argument go? Just because Kirpal is using progressive arguments does not make him a leftist. But I'm saying that it does. If he's making a progressive argument, then that does make him leftist.
Do you want should be the arbiter of whether we eat, love, pray, what we wear? The government very often says that they want to define that.
Is your visual image of conservatism going to limit itself only to khap panchayats? Are you saying that there are no other shades of conservatism which are sophisticated?
No, many. Like a father that does, like there are many.
No, I felt that the example was perhaps it was stereotypical.
No, I was just.
Yeah, it's a worst case scenario stereotype as well. So leftism का भी हम शुरू ही करेंगे कि when does leftism go too far? Because you know Stalin killed so many people. Now you are a leftist here. You are अभिजीत बैनर्जी को पूछेंगे डायरेक्टली स्टालिन ने 6 लाख लोग मारा तो अब तुम्हारा क्या पोजीशन है बोल के ये बोलो. ऐसे आर्गुमेंट शुरू करेंगे अकॉर्डिंग टू शोमा चौधरी.
Evoking the easiest shorthand.
So that's the problem with the shorthand, because then it loses nuance. The point I'm trying to make is this. I'm not on the question of whether conservatives must have the right to draw a line. The question was entirely in my submission. You can play it out for everybody's benefit. Was, do people holding a conservative point of view not have a seat at the table when this issue is being discussed? Are they not participants to this particular discussion in any way? They can be wrong. They can be 100% wrong. But are you going to deny them the right to participate in this discussion by having this closed-door hearing, so to speak? Because it is a closed-door hearing when the rest of the society doesn't get to participate in it. You cannot compare the scale of this particular discussion or its comprehensive nature or lack of comprehensiveness, so to speak, with what happens in the legislature. So the point is entirely this. I don't think that the conservatives must effectively have the power of veto. That's not been my position. But they certainly have the right to participate in those conversations. And this forum and the nature of this proceeding does not lend itself to multi-party stakeholdership representation, thanks to the nature of the forum. It's not on this particular issue alone, on several other issues. So I'm not going to sit and say, this should be the line that conservatives must draw. Did you see me ventilate the particular position in court? No. Because I don't need to make that particular argument. The entire argument was, give us a seat at the table. Don't make this an elitist conversation where we have absolutely no space whatsoever. That's been the nature of the discussion. That's been the ask. So why do we need to actually look down upon the conservative position?
May I ask you a question here? Saurabh, how would you respond to?
Well, that argument, if stretched to its logical conclusion.
May I ask you a question? Saurabh, how would you respond to this? What is going on? अरे क्या बोल रही है ये?
Would require us to erase courts from our constitution altogether. Because every time courts decide something, for instance, in a matter of fundamental right of free speech, right? It's not as though they're deciding that it's valuable free speech or not, that they'll conduct public surveys and then take a decision. They're obviously not. So if every time the courts are supposed to give everybody a seat at the table, so to say, then they will never decide a case, because that's not how a judgment is made, right? There are two parties before the court, and very simply, someone as competent as side is also free to come and put the conservative point in court. That happened, right? We heard the government making arguments which were against the liberal position put forward by the petitioners. So who was silenced? The problem is not that the conservative voice was silenced. The problem was, where was the conservative voice meant to be heard? And I don't believe that there is no place for a conservative voice any more than there is no place for a liberal voice. In a free democracy, in a free country, there is a place for every stream of thought, including on this particular podium. The question, however, is that when you say that because there is a lack of hearing of the conservative voice, to me sounds really, if you unplug it enough, argument against the court exercising its jurisdiction in favor of the liberal point of view, right? That's the sum and substance, really, if you unpack the argument. Because how was the conservative position not given a seat at the table, or how was the liberal position given a greater seat at the table? Judges are deciding, right? The judges are deciding between left and right, between conservatism and liberalism. Both sides are heard. So if you say
अरे हमारा कंजर्वेटिज्म है ही बड़ा लिबरल, वो तो पहले छोड़ दो, ये अमेरिकन कंजर्वेटिज्म लिबरलिज्म का आर्गुमेंट यहाँ पे घुसा दिया है फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट. ओके, लेट मी चेक सम कमेंट्स अगेन. Radical political homosexuality is a branch of Christian theology where priests used to neuter themselves. I see. I've never heard of this argument, but it might be the same way that's in Iran. कि तुमको gay बनना है, लड़की बन जाओ. And that's what that didn't randomly create gay people to cut off their dicks, but made it the transgender operation capital. My state, Karnataka's public transport will go haywire if everyone starts identifying as women to get a free ride. Yeah, that they should do it. Yeah, Nina has made a very important point here. Okay. These two didn't bring up the argument if they are not allowed to marry, they will commit suicide like they do with puberty blockers discussion. And that is an important argument that they keep making, and that's a bullshit argument that we need to, that's a very important one that we need to refute all the time. सुइसाइड का थ्रेट जहां पे है, वहां अगर एक चीज मान लिया तो बार बार सुइसाइड के थ्रेट में कुछ ना कुछ होते रहेगा. थ्रेट ऑफ सुइसाइड कैनॉट बी अ रीजन टू अग्री टू समथिंग. Out of context, what do you think about Sanatani Muslims like Amnak and Khalid who think there's no actual conflict in being a proud practicing Muslim and being a proud member of pagan country? Yes, they are sensible people who are adjusting according to the times. क्या problem है? किसी ना किसी को तो करना ही होगा, नहीं तो अपना मुस्लिम थियोलॉजी में जाके रहो. अगर मुस्लिम थियोक्रेटिक स्टेट में नहीं रह सकते, that is the way the society has become now. Everyone has to adjust. Hindus are also adjusting to a large extent with their religious customs and teachings, right? सबको adjust करना पड़ रहा है, वो भी adjust कर रहे हैं. Although it's not sanctioned in their text, but they are saying as casual commoners, okay, common moments. They are not ghazis or shaheeds, right? They are casual believers. So I don't think it's sanctioned by Muslim clerics. But even if Muslim clerics don't sanction this, they would also be have to be asked. Then why are you living in a kafir majority country? All of them are basically adjusting only. And Khalid and Amna are just saying it explicitly. Maulvis won't say it explicitly, maybe. Mothers and fathers have interchangeable roles, and their roles are what constitute childhood in general. Changing the perception, definition, constitution of the roles will be incredibly perplexing to kids. Yes. They have the luxury to be apolitical. Yes. Agarwal, guess what women get 2002? Oh, I see. I am anti Rajiv Gandhi psychotic Nazbandi. Okay. Okay, let's check the video.
conservatives have no place, well, equally the liberals have no place as well. That's not what happened in court.
Okay. Okay, let's just, we're going to run out of time. I'm going to take a few questions. Unfortunately, there's just so many positions that we really want to examine, which we haven't even gone into. I'm just going to ask both of you a contrary question. One is, let's leave the same-sex marriage aside. I hope that this is argued out in court. When we're saying that the government itself is playing the conservative position in this case, it is arguing against the rights of same-sex couples. So I think the conservative voice is being heard. But Saurabh, let me bring you in.
Yeah, it's not like conservatives were actively said that, "अरे तुम नहीं आओगे debate में." ऐसा नहीं था, but जैसा दीपक's point was a larger point that पूरा का पूरा देश एक conservative party को वोट दिया है, which basically means at least united. It's more of a conservative country, right? And Islam और Christianity का conservative तो छोड़ ही देते हैं. उन लोगों का क्या view है homosexuality पे सबको पता है. तो इन सब का व्यू इग्नोर करके क्यों डायरेक्टली जुडिशियरी में काम हो रहा है इंस्टेड ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट. ओके, श्रीहरि's comment is important. If gender can be fluid, why can't caste and nationality be fluid? Caste cannot be fluid because Brahmins won't accept it. If today I just randomly wake up and start identifying as a Brahmin just because I have read Vedas and have full grasp on the text, or a Brahmin will not change his caste, or by law even he can't be said that you are Shudra just because you have not read any text, you don't know one word of Sanskrit, you have not remotely read anything, and you eat beef yourself like Bengali Brahmins. Okay, हमारा 3 नॉन नेगोशिएबल्स क्या है? धर्म, क्या 3 ब्लास्फेमीज है हिंदुइज्म में? धर्म निंदा, गो हत्या एंड ब्राह्मण हत्या. तो बंगाल में ऐसा है कि सबके सब ब्राह्मण ही गो हत्या सबसे ज्यादा करते हैं, एटलीस्ट गो मांस खाते हैं. तो यहाँ पे उनको ब्राह्मण कैसे बोला जा सकता है? तो लीगली आइडियली इट शुड बी फ्लूइड, कास्ट शुड बी फ्लूइड, मगर ये लोग खुद नहीं मानेंगे, ब्राह्मण्स ही नहीं मानेंगे. एंड नेशनलिटी फ्लूइड करना इनका तो गोल है. You can't tell them that why can't their nationality be fluid. They want nationality to be fluid. There are no borders. Okay, there can't be any borders. Man has made up borders. Before man made borders, हम तो सब एक साथ हम दोस्त बन के रह रहे थे. और जैसे कि एक कुत्ता भी एक कुत्ते के गली में नहीं जाता है. That's man-made borders, bro. Otherwise, dogs would live happily among themselves if we didn't come up with this Westphalian treaty. Can true Islam really coexist with others? Because it's really, literally the Shahada that there's no God except whose prophet is the prophet you know. Yeah. In theory, I don't think it's possible. But if they are adjusting to it, then hum kya kare? West has attacked the native family unit since days of chattel slavery. Yeah. Did you really not respond to those who don't give you money? I am responding to everyone who's giving or not giving money. If that is I think I should pursue it. No name, good idea. Yes, absolutely. Why can't my position in the company I work be fluid? Yes, you should identify as a CEO. Yes, I know about the Kinnaras, though the argument still stands, which is how can you be sure whether it's a intersex individual or transgender even as an adult, let alone as a kid? Yeah. वहाँ पे तो मतलब कपड़ा उतार के देखने का फैक्टर आ रहा है. Scripturally, Varna was fluid, right? It's a legal issue. I don't think there's a consensus on whether it was fluid or not. Some people argue it's fluid, some people argue it's not fluid. Some people say that even if it was not fluid, some devout Hindus that in some parts of the country parallelly were saying that it should become fluid, or you should not be treated unfairly or badly just because you're from a lower caste.
Here into a criticism that the right wing often throws at those who are called liberals, which is that where the Hindu framework is concerned, liberals are always pushing and criticizing the Hindu right for being conservative, for being patriarchal, for being fascist, etc., and pushing for liberal positions. But the moment it comes to Muslims, bizarrely, liberals take a very conservative position on Muslim issues. You know, suddenly you're pro-hijab, you're triple talaq, you're many things. You know, it becomes that the clerics of the Muslim community are the voice of that community. Do you think that this is a valid criticism of the liberal position from the right? Do you hold it yourself? And do you think this needs to change?
I think that's a very valid criticism of a certain section of liberals, particularly those politically inclined. An intellectual liberal will not have that position. I certainly don't. When I see injustice being meted out, I have to be blind as to who's doing that. Now, if it is within the Muslim community, there is no question that the court must intervene. Unlike Sai, I believe the court was right to step in and strike down triple talaq. It is a deeply offensive practice and has no place in a modern democracy governed by the rule of law. And anytime that someone says...
That's not exactly what Sai is arguing. Desai Deepak would argue that तुमको पता कैसे है? तुम 3 मौलवी खड़ा करो जो बोल रहे हैं कि हाँ ट्रिपल तलाक नहीं करना चाहिए. Then come to the conclusion. Otherwise, it sets precedence that the judge will willy-nilly decide what's a religious custom or not.
So that is a principle that I must take, a principal position.
अरे मैरिज करना है मगर मैरिज का कोई कस्टम फॉलो नहीं करना है. अजीब बात है. तुम अपना धर्म बदलो ना. मुस्लिम मत रहो. Then you won't be subject to triple तलाक. तो या फिर कन्विंस करो या फिर मौलवियों को आके बोलने दो कि ट्रिपल तलाक सैंक्शनड है कि नहीं. Judge cannot decide that. Yes. Otherwise, it's a marriage fully sanctioned by Maulvis. But when it comes to divorce, suddenly we won't listen to Maulvis. That's the stupidity that Desai Deepak is saying not to pursue. Medical certificate probably should be there in case of intersex. For trans, it is state of mind, so certificate can't be issued. Yes, liberals support them because they are scared, and if they aren't scared, either they are a nobody or they are dead.
On hijab, now there again, I am not a fan of cloaking women and removing their identity. So I'm not a great votary or a fan of hijab at all. The question is, how do you go about it? But that again is, that's not something that was done by the courts at all. That was done politically. The matter went to court. I think the courts do have jurisdiction on ruling as to whether hijab is constitutional or not. Right? What they do is another thing. So here again, we must not conflate jurisdictional issues from the values that we hold. But the criticism of the right sometimes is justified because sometimes the excesses of other religions are allowed to stand. And there is no place for that anywhere. Equally, there is no place for injustice within the Hindu community. So I don't think we should get drawn into this whataboutery. We must realize there's a bigger problem out there, which is patriarchal society, where women are oppressed in society, and therefore the laws must move in, both courts as well as the legislature, to even the scales for women. We are still a caste-ridden society. There is no question of it. So there is a responsibility to move in and address those issues. So to some extent, if an argument is made that we turn a blind eye towards the ills of a community because we claim to be liberal and liberalism is somehow only anti-Hindu, there I don't think that's a good position.
since he's conceded that, I'm going to come to you for a quick concession, Sai, which is that you've been saying that things have to be that some things are decided as a heteronormative. You've used this phrase, or is this Google wrong? Okay, so when you say heteronormative, isn't that a very, very problematic concept? Because again, there you're putting power into the hands. What is heteronormative?
Okay, here's an interesting conversation to have with Here to Learn Maximus and Srihari. You all have started a very interesting tangent here. Personally, I am in favor of starting a separate institution for assigning castes or varnas, to be specific. Okay, and whether that should be based on any education that you receive. I mean, considering, so if someone's a PhD, that means they are a Brahmin. If they are they become professors after becoming PhDs, then they are officially an acharya. They should not be even called professors, they need to be called acharyas. Those sorts of things. When you go to receive your PhD certificate, you should be given a janeyu. Those things, those sort of things, because then it really kind of brings back the sanctity of the janeyu, and not just any random commie from a Brahmin family who is going to tie shoelaces with his janeyu, which happens commonly in Bengal. But if anyone is really arguing that diksha is not legal and therefore it's not therefore you can't change your caste legally, I'm saying whether it will be allowed by Brahmins, whether they will really support such a law which allows their kids or themselves to not be considered Brahmins anymore. Okay, I don't think Brahmins will allow that. And as for anyone not allowing reservation, I'm fine with it. But lower caste should not get reservations anyway, according to me. If there is a reservation, it should be for a basic minimum for some poor kids who have shown real promise in their school level, or maybe in their middle school level, not at the college university level. State cannot define religion. If any practice, whether religious or irreligious, violates the basic rights of a human beings, should be scrapped, except in religious actions like marriage. How can someone be a proud hijabi after knowing its derogatory origin? Like no Dalit will wear a spittoon with pride. Yeah, that's their prerogative. Let them be proud hijabis. If they have a problem with hijab, then become Hindu. How can you have a problem with a Muslim, with a major Muslim practice, which practiced everywhere in the world, whereas this one judge is randomly deciding, no, it's not very Muslim, it is Muslim. Every Islamic country follows it, maybe not mandatorily, but every Muslim believes it. If you are claiming to be a devout Muslim, then follow it. Exactly. Only army people are Kshatriyas, and PhDs are Brahmanas, Vaishyas are self-made businessmen, and Shudra is everyone who does not achieve these three ranks. Yeah. Will Brahmins allow this? I am going to be in favor of this law.
And what is normative itself? Right. And here I wanted to use the
now, Nina, only caveat I want to add is that I am in doubt about it, because the only doubt I have is that when Vedas or any ancient Hindu scripture talks about knowledge, okay, jnana or vidya, they specifically mean jnana and vidya of Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, etc. So if you have jnana and vidya of gender studies, does that make you Brahmin as well? Now the counter argument to this could be that since Veda is Sanatan, it's eternal, it's all encompassing. Therefore, any knowledge that you gain PhD in is somehow or the other part of Vedas anyway. Therefore, you are a Brahmin. So there are arguments to be made on both sides. Why wouldn't Bengali Brahmins be communists? Allow that? Vote bank or what? Allow which one? Only allow these things, right? What Ninad is saying. Yeah, they would allow only that thing, but Brahmins of elsewhere would not allow this.
Example of, say, the Fogart sisters, where normatively they would not have been allowed to be wrestlers, boxers, cut their hair short, do any of what they were to do.
हाँ, और वही खाम पंचायत के हरियाणा में that's become the norm.
There are parents who are in very normative societies where an individual feels the urge to break from a norm.
Right.
And the constitution has been built to support those individuals who want to break from a norm.
Right.
Whereas the heteronormative always tries to keep status quo and conformity.
Right.
So are you going to say that we must subscribe to the heteronormative? How will an individual ever break free? And here I want to...
By having a conversation, just like Fogart father, Daddy Fogart had a conversation, stood up for his girls, made sure it happens anyway, in with that struggle, not by running to judge uncle.
Go away from the Indian context and let's take black rights, so it's not an emotive issue.
Right.
Back in 1700s, blacks were seen as property. And you know that famous case where in a ship that was going to drown, the owners of the ship threw 350 blacks into the ocean.
Arey, ye dekho. This is why I'm saying Shoma Chaudhury just has not updated her argument since she was in college, okay? Only blacks were thrown off ships. Plenty of people were thrown off ships for different reasons. हिंदुओं के साथ हिंदू कुश में क्या हुआ था? हिंदुओं के साथ 47 में क्या हुआ था? सारे प्रॉब्लम ब्लैक्स को है या सारे प्रॉब्लम लोअर कास्ट को है, सारे प्रॉब्लम सिर्फ मुस्लिम्स को है, ये आर्गुमेंट होगा तो अपोज तो करना ही पड़ेगा टूथ एंड नेल एंड ऑन एवरी टेंजेंट. वो a lot of Indian, I think Hindus only, tried to get into Canada. Canada rejected them. That ship then went to icy waters and everyone froze to death inside the ship. तो ये blacks का डंडी रोना कहाँ से आ रहा है? Then there's the issue of white people also being taken as slaves. So white people who were taken as slaves by other white people or by other black people, she's guaranteeing that they were never thrown off any ships. There are documents of discussions in the Roman courts saying that don't get these European white slaves. It's hard to train them. Slavic words, Slavic people say slave word aata hai. They were always taken by slaves, by North African Arab traders. Slavery was everywhere. Okay. So if there is a human sacrifice inside a temple and it is part of ERP, that should be allowed. No. Because someone has to decide that is it really a norm? Is it really sanctioned everywhere? There is a general consensus that Nadabali is not what not part of the religion. Most religions would most religious people, religious gurus would disagree with it anyway. Most Brahmins I see around, I want to say Brahman Nava. Yes, that's what. JSG argument at its core is that all this progressive nonsense won't ever be spouted by any Muslim from the Islamic community. So how the hell do you negotiate with someone like that? Yes, but that can't be the argument that उसको नहीं बोल रहे हो कि हमको क्यों बोल रहे हो. हमारा argument ये होना चाहिए कि हमको तो ये चीज चाहिए sacrosanct. But Abhay's argument is important, but that also needs to be that brings out the importance of reminding people that extremities में सब कुछ problems होगा ही. Like they say that the political spectrum is not really left right, it's circular. When you are center of left, you become left so much that you somewhere you meet the extreme right wingers as well, and same with the right wingers as well. So the point is that extremities cannot be allowed. Now one might argue that why is just killing a human extremity, not everything else? Because let's compare Narabali with Pashubali. Pashubali say I don't have a problem because even though I'm a vegetarian and most of the times vegan myself, because everyone's eating mutton anyway. तो एक और गोट को पूजा वूजा करके मारने में तुम्हारा क्या प्रॉब्लम है? वैसे भी वो गोट को किसी ना कोई खाने ही वाला था 2 दिन बाद. 2 दिन पहले किसी ने मार दिया माँ काली के लिए, तो उसमें तुम्हारा क्या प्रॉब्लम है? उसमें ये फालतू का जुडिशियल इंटरफेरेंस है without taking the law into without taking the religion into consideration really. But when it comes to when it comes to Narabali, I don't have any such argument. I won't be able to have any such argument that ये तो वैसे भी होता है, वैसे भी लोग वो आदमी को काट के खा ही लेते, तो थोड़ा मंदिर में भी बलि हो जाए तो क्या है? It's a balance of judgments, balance of arguments. Did you watch Abrahamic Privilege in the Charvaka podcast? That video was so interesting. And did you think that total annihilation of Jati Varna is important? I don't know what the phrase annihilation of Jati Varna is, okay? Because legally it doesn't exist anyway. Legally you can't discriminate against someone anyway. It's already there. But in a way, Jati Varna is practiced anyway because Virat Kohli marries Anushka Sharma, not a random girl from my neighborhood. But other than that, what is the meaning of annihilating Jati Varna? Okay, does it mean that now you become a PhD, therefore become Brahmin? Those sorts of things. Yes, if that means annihilating Jati Varna, then I'm in favor of it. But otherwise, I don't know what does it mean annihilating Jati Varna. Everyone should stop thinking about their caste and stop discriminating against people. Yeah, that I'm in favor of. We should teach something or the other about Vedas in higher education, even for ridiculous degrees like gender studies. This will make them Brahmanas. Alongside PhDs, we should include Pujaris and Vedics. Yes, also Varna was only applicable in Nagar, Gram, Jivan. There are many other categories that are not covered in this. Yes, of course. Forest dwellers. For example, the Panchama. A lone fisherman not in a city would not fall in any of the Varnas. Yeah. How can you negotiate on behalf of a community, and if you do, they'll cry majoritarianism? As here in the Hindus are speaking on behalf of the Islamic community, which they don't represent or are a part of. Yes, that's what. Did you see that even Elon Musk has come in support of Vivek Ramaswamy? Oh, has he like explicitly endorsed him or something? Or did he just say that, yeah, he's a good guy and he hosted him on his Twitter spaces? I don't know if he has endorsed him specifically. AIM wants to revive human sacrifice. Yeah, that's a joke. Let's say Narbali is sanctioned everywhere. Should that be allowed? Yes, then you stop saying that you are Hindu. If you are Hindu, then you are subject to Narbali then. because those are hypothetical situations we are talking about. Kechai Khaiti Devi of Northeast requires human sacrifice, but point is killing human in general is illegal. Killing goat is not illegal. Here to learn is unfortunately bringing the point that I wanted to make, but I forgot. Okay, in an ideal, in let's say if in my ideal country, vegetarianism would be only legal. Okay, eating meat would not be legal. Least of all, at least beef would be definitely banned. In such a place, I could argue that okay, stop on Pashubali as well. Or in that case, Pashubali would be even a lesser problem, because ये जो रोज लाखों के लाखों गोट्स मारे जा रहे हैं, उसके बदले में हर जगह में एक दो कहीं कहीं पे जहाँ पे पशुबली हो रहा है वहां पे मारे जा रहे हैं. But when everyone's eating meat all day and then they are banning Pashubali, then it's a huge problem. Nadbali was substituted with Pashubali, which was replaced with pumpkin. Yes, that is true. Chandranath Boshu সম্বন্ধে কিছু বলুন. I have no idea about Chandranath Boshu, except that he came up with the term Hindutva and I think wrote a book called Hindutva. I have not read his work. জন্মজাত সবাই শূদ্র, ব্রহ্মজ্ঞান লাভ সে ব্রাহ্মণ হয়, উপনয়ন হচ্ছে ব্রহ্মজ্ঞান লাভের initiation. Yes, now is that brahmagyan specifically knowledge of Vedas or any knowledge? Okay, because gyan, vidya, these things are mentioned in the Vedas. But even then, unless you do that, then you, obviously you are not Brahmin. But people won't agree to that. I have made this argument months before, and people have called me Chamarka Bacha, because they said that no, Brahmin is not just about knowing Vedas and knowing Sanskrit. You are Brahmin because someone in your past life was also Brahmin. That's why you are Brahmin today, and that can be taken away. So वहाँ पे कहाँ का क्या annihilation होगा? There are some universal objective models which apply irrespective of religion and non-religion. Yes, but then they should get out of that religion. Be an atheist and be against all religious customs. No, jatis are essentially ethnicities, so saying destruction of this is essentially calling for ethnocide. Elon casually praised Vivek. Yeah, I see. Even if you study Arthashastra, Chanakya clearly says Traividya can be read by Brahman, Vaishya and Kshatriyas. Yes, reading का बात नहीं हो रहा है कि कौन ब्राह्मण बन पाएगा. Read JSD's book where he exposes that. Exposes what? There are Abhay's argument that there are some universal objective models which apply irrespective of religion and non-religion. I agree there are some, but not everything is objective models, and that's devoid of any religious influence. Not everything is that. Some things are definitely that. Jati and Varna are separate. Even lower castes wouldn't want to give up their Jati. Mind it, even what we call Jati is actually a nation in Europe. Yeah, a people, a qawm. The Initians are a different age. Okay. Elon tweeted truly a promising candidate on another tweet featuring Vivek Ramaswamy. I see. Nice. Yeah. That's not officially an endorsement, but yeah, he's getting there. I think he will at the end of the day. This is why I'm not a moral relativist. Yes. But see, moral relativism does not have to be a direct result of Hindu philosophical thinking, because we have laws. We always had laws that there were specific do's and don'ts. No, Ashgard, sugarcane, etc. are mentioned in scriptures. It's not one replaced another. It's different things for different margs. Yeah, I think some margs specifically said हमको और Pashubali नहीं करना है. Yes, Jati is like a mini ethnicity. All these people who think a society without ethnicity is desirable are just repeating Christian, Islamist, communist arguments. Since older Indian society had the system of knowledge carrying through hereditary, since then Varna became a hereditary thing. Yara, I know how it became. I'm saying abhi iska kya karoge? Jati from Gyati to show. Dada, you are talking like an Abrahamic, assuming the religions cannot evolve. Am I? Let this video go on. Let me think about your point.
So that they could claim insurance. That was the normative behavior.
Right.
It took a court to overrule that. And it took another 100 years before society caught up with that. So the normative behavior for the whites was that blacks are just property and non-human.
Right.
It took individuals to break that norm. So let me ask you a value question here.
Okay, Abhay, I've come up with the response for your brilliant point. Yes. So I would not say religions cannot or should not evolve. I will say they will definitely end up evolving regardless of who wants it or not. Just like people are claiming that USA is a Judeo-Christian nation, it's not really a Judeo-Christian nation. All other countries are also Judeo-Christian nations, but they have not really become as free as United States. United States is their constitutional nation. It's a constitutional republic. It's not really a democracy even, which was made on the basis of some Judeo-Christian values, some Renaissance era ethics, and some Enlightenment values. their country is a result of their constitution and not because of their Judeo-Christian values. But why are so many Christians calling it a Judeo-Christian nation or a Christian nation? Because they have evolved. Because what Christianity was going around doing, that doesn't happen in USA, right? So even Abrahamic faiths like Christianity have evolved. Even Saudi Arabia is evolving in a way. So I would not say that Hinduism should not evolve or anything that evolves is therefore wrong. I am claiming that specifically in terms of marriage, it should not be allowed to be evolved because we can see that what it will lead to. That I'm making an argument against, and I'm again saying that I'm open to any counter arguments, and I'm open to being convinced about if someone claims that no, even if you separate marriage from religion and having kids, even then wokeism, LGBTQ ideas, divorce won't become commonplace in society. If you make that argument in a convincing way, I'm first of all going to listen to you, and I'm open to getting convinced. Right now I'm not convinced, and therefore at least in the case of marriage, I'm saying marriage should not be able to should be allowed to be evolved into something else. Brahmins are most leftist and most rightist group at the same time. Other castes at least have some moderation. There are several examples of Shudas bring Brahmins or Shudas bring Brahmins. Yes. Did you watch the Apology of Raja Rammohan Roy by Sangam Talks? He's really not that bad. What Mr. Rajiv Malhotra is saying. No, I have not watched that. But what is in that Sangam Talks? Did they argue against the letter? Letter में जो बोला है, वहाँ पे मेरा problem है. Not what Rajiv Malhotra said. I don't care about what Rajiv Malhotra said about Raja Rammohan Roy. I have not read any of Rajiv Malhotra's books. I have only heard Rajiv Malhotra criticizing Raja Rammohan Roy. So my problem with Raja Rammohan Roy is him absolutely discarding Sanskrit, reading Sanskrit or reading anything remotely related to Sanskrit and making fun of Sanskrit while claiming that I have read Vedanta etc. वहां पे सिर्फ grammatical niceties है. इस सब का काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट दिया है कि पैरेलली आर्ग्यू किया है कि राजा राममोहन रॉय ने इतना अच्छा काम भी किया था. मैं वो कितना अच्छा काम किया था उस पर कमेंट नहीं कर रहा हूं. मैं बोल रहा हूं कि ये जो गलत काम किया था इसमें संगम टॉक्स का या कोई भी बंगाली राममोहन रॉय एपोलॉजिस्ट का क्या आर्ग्यूमेंट है? What's your argument even specifically? Random, but it was good to see you discuss Binoy Kumar Sarkar in this previous video. Oh, Dishan is back. Yeah, he is a fantastic sociologist. We were blown away with his paper. Some viewer only recommended it. Like some religious practices include consumption of mercury or stuff like shop shadhana. Has it to be legal or illegal? Personal responsibility तो वो तो legal होना ही चाहिए. But if we keep only thinking about extremes, then the argument gets diverted. Or we have to decide each practice separately. Difference between democracy and republic. Long discussion. It was made on the basis of Protestant ethics. Yeah, pretty much. Judeo-Christian nation kahan se ban gaya? Okay, the US is a Judeo-Christian nation. Why are the buildings Roman? Because even in Manusmriti, he says rules need to evolve with time and context. Yeah, अब कोई आके बोलेगा कि नहीं वो तुमने गलत मनुस्मृति का ट्रांसलेशन पर लिया है. That would be a endless debate. No one can agree on any translation. So first of all, I'm saying that make reading Sanskrit a mandatory from kid levels. But yes, and Manusmriti says many great things like do any custom according to your own capability. अब according to your own capability क्या कौन decide करेगा? तुम खुद decide करोगे with your own honesty that what am I really putting in my 100% here. Okay, সংস্কৃত ভাষা রাষ্ট্রভাষা হওয়া উচিত কি? Okay, this person is randomly talking in Bengali even though we are having an English live stream. So he's asking, should Sanskrit be the official national language? And my opinion is yes, it should be a national language, but after 25 years. First of all, you have to start making Sanskrit a compulsory language from KG 1 to whenever any language is started to be taught. Okay, either make Sanskrit the first language or your mother tongue the first language. Second language is English or Sanskrit, depending on there should be different options in different schools and different boards. And so that people do have a choice to treat whichever their second languages or first languages. But one of the three languages has to be Sanskrit, and the third language has to go up till 12th, so that a general mass of population is absolutely fluent in Sanskrit by the time they get into the workforce. And then we can talk about making Sanskrit an official language. Because right now what we have with Sanskrit, again I'll give this example, is that any time you talk about Sanskrit, translation galat hai, sab log bolna shuru kar dete hain. So is this pen really a pen? Some scholars will say, no, this is a cow. Someone will say this is a pen. Someone will say this is a mic. We can't have that kind of absolute vast bullshit ambiguity and claim that Sanskrit needs to be made the national language right now today. It should be made the national language when there's absolutely no fucking ambiguity. If in English I hold a cat and say it's a cat, everyone in the world agrees it's a cat. There's no ambiguity that it's probably a horse. We have gigantic ambiguity in Sanskrit, and that needs to be ended as soon as possible. People don't need to have an opinion on everything. JSD refutes the Kantian model categorical in his book as colonial propagandist concept. Kantian model category, yeah. It's like saying human rights are universal while ignoring their colonial usage. That's a no translation fallacy. Kushal Mehra has done a monologue on it. Yes. প্রথমত এখন বর্ণ ব্যবস্থায় ফিরে লাভও নেই since we follow a colonization state model. Yeah.
Not a legal question.
Yes.
Are you in favor of individuals who are seeking to express their liberty and break with the normative behavior of their societies? Which would you support as a value?
Could you please explain where this question is coming from and why is
I'm-
this being put to me?
I'm asking it as a value question.
Fine.
I've asked him also about this blindness towards, say, regressive practices amongst Muslims.
Right.
Liberals take a default position which says, oh, they must have their rights. So I'm similarly asking you.
So first point, I think the concession that Mr. Kirpal has made, I would compliment him for it.
Sorry.
I would compliment him for it because I would say he's truly in the minority for having made the concession. Two, and since you've claimed to have read my book, or at least you have an idea of it, I have abhorred the use of the word right in the context of the
The
position.
use of the word?
Right.
Right.
In the context of the positions I take, because I do not subscribe to right wing for a very clear reason, that it has extremely racist, genocidal, and colonial connotations, which I do not relate to under any circumstances. Those who subscribe to the indic position are the people I subscribe to or I relate to. So mine is not the right wing. I've clearly said mine is the indic wing. That's one. Second, in the written submissions filed before the court in this very same matter, I've asked for NHMU, non-heteronormative marital unions, to be recognized through the legislature, at least by way of partnerships. That's a very specific suggestion that I've made as part of my written submissions. I did not bat for heteronormativity. I basically said, by and large, societies tend to be governed by majority will when it comes to deciding the norm. However, that does not mean that what is not the norm does not exist. And this is where I go back to the Hindu question that you put to me.
Yeah, this kind of answers a lot of Abhay's questions as well. But I would like to point out that J.S.I. Deepak's problem with the word or the phrase right wing is not something I agree with. You can be right wing because what right wing generally means is what he is. So just because it has connotations, that does not mean anything. Because a leftist can accuse you of having random connotations with anything. If you have a tilak, that means you have a connotation of killing Muslims. Okay, so leftist ka connotations follow karne chale to ho gaya satyanash. Okay, here to learn is saying it has put up an important point. Like just like learning English is economically and scientifically incentivized. How can Sanskrit be incentivized? It can't be incentivized unless someone goes through the interest in their own cultural history and past that we are facing today. Me as a YouTuber and you guys commenting here, we feel like the will to learn Sanskrit, right? If that is really imbibed in people, in parents, like when all of us become parents, and then we imbibe it in their kids, then there will be a general demand in society that will lead people, schools to have Sanskrit courses. But I'm not leaving it just on incentives, because English was not created just because of public demand. Okay, not everything happens just because of a demand. IPL did not happen just because of a demand. Someone came up with the idea and proposed it. Now IPL was not compulsory, but languages have always been made compulsory, right? Because kids who are studying in school are under 18. It can't be led to their incentives and wishes as well, maybe their parents. But in Sanskrit it needs to be compulsory for kids, because there's a larger important goal to have in terms of epistemology, wisdom, etc. You all know what are the benefits of knowing Sanskrit. The debate gets spicier in the last 5 to 7 minutes when the journo jumps in the debate to save a tribe. Okay, Dark Prince is saying take Mahera with a large grain of salt. He just regurgitates a watered down version of Western racialism. Why? Okay. File is saying, sorry for speaking Bengali. My English is not good in Sanskrit literature. There is a lot of interpretation. Yeah, one word means many things. Literature is written very poetically. Ambiguity cannot be solved this way. Ambiguity solved when everyone is fluent in Sanskrit. Everyone becomes a Sanskritist. Okay. Right now there is ambiguity because not everyone has properly read Sanskrit or doesn't know Sanskrit enough. everyone needs to know Sanskrit enough, then there won't be any ambiguity. Because it's not like it was ambiguous forever, right? Do you think a Brahmin rishi from West Bengal or in Bangladesh in Mahasthanam went to South India's Shaivite temples or went to Shaivite spots in Kashmir and could not communicate because they spoke ambiguous different meanings in Sanskrit? No. Everyone knew what they were saying. So we need to get to that level again, because then we can say that gravity, cars, internet, etc. are colonial. Yes, that should not be the case. But in terms of specifically Manusmriti, because I have faced it myself while we discuss Manusmriti, 50% people said that it's the absolutely a great Manusmriti to read. 50% said that it's the wrong Manusmriti to read. That's why I'm saying it can't specifically be based on Manusmriti. It can be based on Arthashastra even, because Arthashastra का जो translations है, even there's no ambiguity in among those translations as well. At least the Penguin Classics one, translated by Ellen Rangarajan, that's pretty much considered by everyone that it's a fair translation. मनुस्मृति में ही सब चुतियापा हो रहा है. By right wing and left winger concept 16th century French Revolution সময় legislature seating arrangement এর উপর based. Yes, but it means something different now. Arya meant something at one point, Arya means something different later on. So the terms themselves change their meanings. तो क्या हुआ है? But Desai Deepak's fear is not that. Desai Deepak's fear is of connotations, and I can't care about leftist connotations, leftist assigning connotations to my terms. Why come up with our own when we have Sharia and Western canon law? Again, you are falling for secularized monotheism. This is a parallel discussion. Kushal Mehra is a Westward sympathizer since his wife is Canadian. Are Canadian Indian hai? Canadian white to nahi hai, I guess. His wife is Canadian. Take whatever he says with a grain of salt. Iyer is more Hindutwadi than him. No. That's a bit unfair. But Kushal is a Charvaka Hindu. What would you expect a Charvaka to say or do? That's what he's saying. I don't think we should judge someone so easily just showing a letter. What their conversation with an Englishman think about letter of Savarkar. In reality, Savarkar, what is a philosophical giant? What's the content of Savarkar's letter? I don't want to stay in jail. What's the content of Raja Rammohan Roy's letter? Fuck Sanskrit. Are these two the same? We absolutely should judge Raja Rammohan Roy on the basis of his letters, because he has operated his whole life on the basis of the views he espoused in that letter. Should I ignore it? What's the argument of people? Ignore it just because that was one letter and he never consistently held those beliefs? Or simply prefer focus on his other good actions and not this? And then I would need an admission that yes, that was wrong of him to write that letter. That letter is absolutely bullshit. The views espoused in that letter, those views which he held even the rest of his life, they were all bullshit. And even then, ignore the bullshit and focus on his good parts, so that we can treat him as a hero in the Bengali Hindutva community. Is that the argument? That's a fairer argument. But I'm not going to concede that letter was bullshit in the first place. That letter was definitely wrong. And I can even concede to this much, that he was writing that letter maybe based on the gigantic casteism he was seeing in all around him. He was saying that anyone who speaks Sanskrit is a gigantic Shudra hater or of some sort. Even that is a fair argument. But उसका बेसिस पे जो कंक्लूजन किया है कि संस्कृत तो है सिर्फ ग्रामेटिकल नाइसिटीज, ऐसा नहीं बोला है कि संस्कृत है तो कास्टिस्ट हो जाएगा बंदा. Okay, so anyone who speaks so lowly of casteism and philosophical and our texts and says that what's the point of reading Sanskrit? What's the point of teaching Vedanta to kids when they can learn science? That has never been the argument. That is not the argument. The argument is that teach everything in Sanskrit. Vedanta is philosophy or theological books. Raja Rammohan Roy made a gigantic strawman in that letter, saying that if Sanskrit is the only go-to subject to study, then as if people will teach Vedanta in an engineering course. That is not what I'm saying. That is not anyone who's talking about making Sanskrit the main language or having respect for Sanskrit is saying. So for making these insane strawmans and for saying Sanskrit is just about grammatical niceties, I will hold Raja Rammohan Roy to account and will not ignore him just because I need brownie points as a proud Bengali. You want your today's political line of thinking defined by that? The people who sat in that order had some specific ideology. Yes. And they change. Kya kare? Because today right wing means racism only as a far right concept. Everywhere there's a right wing. And in that sense, Desai Deepak is the right wing of India. Do you think Ben Shapiro is a staunch racist who wants black people to die just because racism has racist right wing has racist connotations? How many American conservative speakers do you think want black people to die or black people to be killed? or to be kicked away from the country. Do you think Jordan Peterson wants that? So just because at one point right wing meant that, can't mean that today's right wingers all mean that, or today's right wing also means that exact same thing. By incentive, I mean English helps in career, computer languages are English based, so on. How can Sanskrit be made like that? It can't be made like that because it didn't start out like that with English. Okay, it's not like that. There were English became an incentive from years back because of people like Raja Rammohn Roy and because the colonial education system. तो वो सब मैजिक को इग्नोर करके हम आज का डायरेक्टली इंग्लिश अचानक संस्कृत में रिप्लेस नहीं कर दे सकते हैं. फॉर दैट इट हैज टू बी मेड कंपल्सरी फॉर किड्स. I have you heard of linguistic argument against Sanskritic science? aka it has bloated history and linguistic rules which makes learning process slow. I can't recall who made this argument. Raja Rammohn Roy himself has made this argument. But उसके लिए तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ 25 साल दो संस्कृत सीखने को, उसके बाद make it fluent. If someone is grasping it, then someone else can grasp it also. There are certain objectively good things which the West gave to the world. Everything cannot be discarded as colonial. Yeah, I'm in 100% in favor of that. Straman, the social and cultural are categorically different. But this is why English replaced Latin in Science. It led to scale. Yeah, and that led to having more stupid people. We don't want stupid people. How did Israel not be a Hebrew fluent country at one point, then become Hebrew fluent country at another point in history? How did that happen? We had Magdi Prakrit as lingua franca during 3rd century BC in India, as we saw yesterday. We can make Sanskrit lingua franca of 22nd century. Yes. Mardhakarshan and Chalamanyantra is the decolonized version. I feel there is a grain of truth because if you visit Dharmacharyas, their hot takes on tech is really outdated. This is why Rajiv Malhotra asked for a new Shastra, so much time is spent in. Yeah, I'm not saying that on tech. I'm not saying that read technology or read engineering from your Dharma Guru. I'm not saying read artificial intelligence, study artificial intelligence from Sadguru. I'm saying study that in Sanskrit from your professor who also knows Sanskrit. जिसके लिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ 25-26 साल चाहिए, 25 साल. You are just repeating the arguments for Christian universalism. Everyone is a subject for the Christian God. It also appropriates mathematics. Raja Rammohn Roy celebrated the conquistadors at their conduct in South America. The man was okay with colonization as well. Yeah, plenty of people were okay with colonization. उसके लिए specifically blame कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. Surendra Banerjee and all, many people were for colonization. They explicitly wanted colonization to go on forever and ever. Aghora practices harm no living person, so I think it should be legal. Like Mahakal have the right to be smeared with cremation ash and not proper ash. Interdomination argument and learning rules. This is why lefties are trying to kill Sanskrit and replace it with English. Even Romance languages like France hate English for lack of linguistic consistency. Yeah, and there is a problem of not having enough nuance as well. I didn't understand your context. You said social and cultural are different. Okay, let's see what Files is saying. Savarkar wanted Indians to serve in World War II. He was loyalist. Most freedom fighters, Netaji, Bhagat Singh, Sachindranath Sandal, were very left-wing socialist communists. Okay, Savarkar wanted Indians to serve in World War II for an absolutely different reason than what Gandhi wanted people to serve in World War II for. Okay, Savarkar wanted people to serve in World War II because he wanted people to have training in guns so that they can later come back and defend the country. Gandhi wanted people to serve in World War II so that they keep being colonial stooges and have conversations and negotiations with the British. So it's an absolutely different point. And Netaji, Bhagat Singh, Sachindranath Sandal were very left-wing socialists. Absolutely not. Only Bhagat Singh was a leftist, and he has written in his letters that I am the only leftist around me. Everyone is a nationalist these days. मुझे leftist नहीं मिल रहा है. Netaji was a leftist. How did that happen? When did Netaji become leftist? This is a forward block talking point. Netaji was not a leftist. And Sachindranath Sandal was not a leftist. That's been said by Sanjeev Sanyal only. And even if they were socialist and communist, that's also not a big factor because back then everyone had 3 choices to choose from. Okay, Sri Aurobindo's line of revolutionaries, Sri Aurobindo, Bipin Chandra Pal, they were talking about awakening the Hindu ethos, talking about Ma Bhavani, Ma Kali, Ma Durga to fight against the British because they were saying that this is a Hindu country. You are not Hindus. You all are mlechas. Get the fuck out. Some people are studying Lenin and Marx and are thinking that yes, imperialism is bad kind of, and it leads to capitalism which oppresses poor people. Therefore, you go the fuck out of my place. And some people like Savitri Mukherjee, Ashit Krishna Mukherjee, Binayak Datta, they were Bengali Nazis. They were proud Brahmins to the extent that they became pro-Aryan because Aryan invasion theory of commies and colonialists backfired to the extent that proud Hindus and proud Brahmins became pro-Aryan. Ashit Krishna Mukherjee was the person who mediated the meeting up of the Japanese army and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And my hunch is, I suspect he is the one who also might have made Hitler and Netaji meet up. Okay, because he was a Nazi, not because he was a socialist. So they had three options to choose from: how to oppose the British, communism ka help le, Hindu nationalism ka help le, as Sri Aurobindo says in the Uttar Pada speech, last line, that for us Sanatan Dharma is nationalism, या फिर नाजिज्म का हेल्प ले. हम तो सब प्राउड आर्यंस है, वो भी प्राउड आर्यन है, हम भी प्राउड आर्यन है, और ये ब्रिटिश वाले प्राउड आर्यन नहीं है, निकालो इनको. तो सबका अपना अपना एक्सक्यूज था ब्रिटिश को निकालने का. Science is not Christian universalism, it is objective reality. Yeah, it's repeatable. And there are black right wingers also in USA. What about them? Yes, exactly. You cannot apply mathematical laws to social and cultural. They are different orders. Okay, I don't know what these guys are having a debate about. Savarkar wanted to join because Hindus lost Kshatriya traditions. Yes. It's only the Eastern Shankaracharya that is against mega machines. Nirghacharya, Vaishnavacharyas and other smarters themselves are very much pro Bhuta Tattva Jnana. Rajaram Mohan Roy literally wanted British to settle in India and intermarry with us. He had wild ideas. Many things are subjective. WRT, culture and society, but some universal laws are common and applicable to all. I agree with this statement. Learning modern science in Sanskrit does not have the same impact because the modern science comes from a different philosophical base. No. Obviously, I'm not qualified enough to make this agree or disagree with this. I'm saying I suspect that's not the case. I think it's possible because again Hebrew did it. But you could say that Hebrew is maybe an Abrahamic language of some sort, and maybe it was possible for them. But I'm not saying that forget English completely. I'm saying English and Sanskrit both. Lol, then Rajaram Mohan Roy wanted some not killing children, not raping women, etc. Yes. And see, not killing children is an universal good thing, right? But then abortion is argued for people who are liberals. 6-month abortion, 5-month abortion, 7-month abortion, सब में तो killing children हो रहा है, उसमें तो किसी का problem नहीं है, वो तो universal right बन गया है, universal fundamental right बन गया है सबका. How is that happening? That is because universalism or liberalism, maybe there are some bullshit religiosity that they have brought in, which is arguments that are not quantifiable, repeatable, and not falsifiable. Are like appropriation schemes, everything good gets mapped out onto the true belief system. It's a tautological scam. Brahma Samaji movement was just a Brahmo Samaji movement was just a way of Christianizing Hindu religion, mainly destroy iconoclasm. Well, there the argument would be that many people inside even Hinduism would say that Nirakara worship and not Sakara worship. Can a kind of parliament of Dharmic Sampradaya possible be in the independent nations and politics by represented by Dharmic POV all over the world, or at least in subcontinent? Yeah, it's desirable. Don't let them map or appropriate. Madras musings. There was Manipravalam practice in southern India where the writing will be in Tamil or Malayalam, but the content in Sanskrit, जैसे हम English में ही हिंदी लिखते हैं. That is exactly how Bengali is written. Bengali Sanskrit is also done. That is how it used to be done. There were ancient Bengali Sanskrit texts as well that all got lost, and in the medieval times, only Devanagari became the go-to Sanskrit text. Okay, even my Bengali Rig Veda has all Sanskrit texts in Bengali only. That is how it was common. Vivek Debra has said it. He has seen countless ancient Bengali Sanskrit manuscripts which are written in Bengali text. वो चला गया क्योंकि बाकी जो लोग संस्कृत बोलते थे मगर देवनागरी स्क्रिप्ट नहीं यूज करते थे, उन लोगों ने संस्कृत बोलना छोड़ दिया, इसलिए सिर्फ देवनागरी में संस्कृत लिखने वाले ही बच गए. तो दैट बिकेम द मेजॉरिटी व्यू पॉइंट. व्हाट्स योर ओपिनियन अबाउट नेताजी एंड एक्सिस सिंपैथी इन द सेम कॉन्टेक्स्ट? I have no opinion on it. Netaji saw a way of getting British out, and Hitler didn't really have any idea of invading India, so I don't care. I respect your argument, but don't you think in the battle of language we already lost and just beating the dead horse? Not easy to learn 3 languages, but Bengali, Sanskrit, English, de facto Hindi also. If it's not easy to learn 3 languages, how do most people know 3 languages? How many Indians do you know who doesn't know 3 languages? Almost everyone knows 3 languages. I'm saying kick out Hindi from your life. Japanese, Hebrew, Korean में तो modern science पढ़ते हैं. Yeah, that is the point. Just see the discussion between Bodas and Popat on Panini. Western linguistics has a more replicable method, while we have reverence on merit. I think Hindi should not be national language. If replaced with Sanskrit, then we can have 3 languages only: Sanskrit, mother tongue, optional. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. Universalism is just Christianity with all particularities removed, a disguise for Christianity to spread surreptitiously. Pregnancy has a direct impact on the woman carrying fetus. Separate children don't. Yes, but abortion has also a direct impact on the child. Rutvik, you are right when you talk about different philosophical base. Just read Vimanika Shastra. Bengali script is based on Sanskrit language, very obvious with jaw letter. Yes, of course. All Indian languages. I think not the South Indian languages, I guess. Bro, that's because Sanskrit doesn't have a script of its own. It's a language, not a script. Yes. Was written by Rishi Bharadwaj. Sanskrit should be written in Devanagari primarily. Other scripts don't do it justice. I'm not so sure. Yeah, probably because jaw, for example, is always jaw. It's not ya ever. Forward Block in Tamil Nadu is exclusively a Tevar caste organization. I see. Okay, now let's get back to this. I'm sorry. I'm not going to read comments for a long time now. I'm just going to read, not comment on it. Let's finish this video.
The Hindu position in the context of the Tritiya Prakriti or in the context of non-heteronormative relationships has been to give them a position outside of the Shastras, as opposed to saying, let's amend the Shastras itself. And second,
yes, see,
institutions were protected. They were actually.
It's not like just because someone is outside Hinduism or outside Shastras, they will get killed. That is what I'm saying. If you have any problem with religious customs of any religion, get out of that religion. Simple as that.
Actually given protection even when it comes to agricultural produce. Why? Because you see members of this community begging at the traffic signal today when they do not have anybody even giving them opportunities of livelihood. This is the manner in which the Hindu community has taken care of this particular non-binary gender identity. So in fact, during the course of my arguments, I specifically submitted, start with at least the basic of Maslow's needs when it comes to what this community faces day in and day out. And the reason is, I've worked with members of this community in addressing issues of human trafficking, which is what they're ultimately subjected to. They are actually sold as prostitutes across. Do you want to know the name of the gangs which are called Jamaats, in which they're actually sold? This is the name of the groups which actually trade.
Look how clueless Shoma Chaudhury is okay. Desai Deepak is giving her a hint. Shoma Chaudhury has no idea what Desai Deepak is talking about.
In transgender prostitutes, so to speak. So I said this is the issue that you need to start with at the very least. So I'm not batting for heteronormativity in every sense to the extent of saying wipe out every other identity. I'm merely saying that allow the society a say and put faith in your advocacy to reach out to the society and explain your point of view. Because if you're going to use the judiciary as a means of top-down imposition of any initiative that you want, the societal acceptance that you actually ask for or that you're craving, you won't get it. And I don't see how is it that the court's imposition of a particular point of view without bringing the society into the
I'm
picture
going to
helps.
stop you from making that point because both of you made that point enough
Please,
times.
please, please.
I'm just going to end this with one last question to both of you, which is that when you say that society should engage with society and with government, in this context, and I'm asking you, obviously, you know, I'm not trying to make you the spokesperson, but why don't you refract a certain view of the world?
Right.
Is that in our society today, and that's why I brought up this Mandan Mishra and this kind of dialogue we're having, this good faith dialogue is just not possible outside in the public. Whether it's the left, which will call the right
Fascist bologe to kya good faith dialogue hoga?
or the fascists, which will call them non-Hindu or Maoists or I don't know, innumerable things.
Yes, if they directly say Mao was a good leader, to Maoist nahi bole to kya bole usko? What is heteronormity? Heteronormity is the what we call a normal society, जहाँ पे एक लड़का और एक लड़की के बीच में शादी होता है, and एक definitely एक लड़का नाम का एक gender होता है, definitely लड़की नाम का एक चीज होता है. ये सब भावनाओं को heteronormity बोला जाता है. Okay. The proper Sanskrit Rigvedic text, which no one knows what it means fully, we should focus on decoding that first. नहीं first होगा तो first के बाद का कुछ भी चीज नहीं आएगा. Look at Fairband who completely exposes science. Okay, Abhay, non-independent fetus is not the pregnant woman's property because the pregnant woman property did not conjure up the baby. Someone's sperm went inside. तो boyfriend या husband का property तो half है ही वो. But even then, even if the kid is the property of the woman or even the parents up until 18, okay, then do the parents have the right to kill that child? No. Therefore, a moral argument needs to be made, which is not our legal position in India so far. But I'm making personally the moral argument that life begins at when the conception happens. When you know you are pregnant, that means there's a life going on, because that means there's a potential of that person to become a fully functioning, full-on human being. And if you kill that, you are killing that person's potential to become a human being, and therefore you are per se you are killing a child, and that is the problem. Communist literature, okay, I won't read comments again. An unborn fetus is part of a woman's body and she has every right to do anything with her body. No, she hasn't. She is not doing something with just her body. She is doing something with someone else's body as well.
Yourself in an interview recently said Barkhadat, Romila Thapar, and
Yes, I did.
Irfan Habib should leave the country
I
and
didn't
not.
say that.
You said
I
who,
didn't say that.
you were asked rhetorically,
Right.
who are the three that should leave the
Correct.
country and never come back, and you
Correct.
picked these. You know,
Correct. Yes. And I
Now-
gave my reasons also, and I stand by those reasons.
right?
Yes.
But just the fact
Right.
that we are asking each other to leave the country,
I
we are
did ask
asking
them
each
to leave
other
the
to be un-Hindu or
I do
Hindu.
not. I do not.
Do you? One
At the
minute. Let
very
me
least,
finish
you
my
shouldn't
question.
cite Ubhay Bharati's example if this is going to be a line of
No.
questioning. Then you'll have to give me an answer.
No,
an
let
opportunity to
me
respond.
just finish my question.
Right.
When you are asking society to engage, those who disagree with government, or
Right.
those who disagree with the heteronormative, or those who disagree with the majority,
Right.
would you concede that it's very worrying that in a society to engage, protests should be allowed without it being called, foreign hands funded, or anti-national, or ready for sedition, or being pushed into jail?
No, protests should be allowed, and we should also make accusations if we really feel that there is a chance that it's foreign funded. दोनों क्यों एक साथ नहीं हो सकते हैं?
How should society dialogue when protesters are not even allowed to be in Jantar Mantar, but they must now go out of sight so that their protest is not heard? When Parliament does not ask for committees, when Parliament does not allow for discussion, when the opposition itself is discredited, how will society dialogue? Do you think this is a crisis?
Is it your case that all protests are genuine?
Yes, I would presume until there's extreme empirical evidence.
So hold on.
To the
So
contrary.
Does the state have the right to prove at the very least that not all protests are organic and genuine? Yes or no?
May I answer that without a yes or no, because we're trying to not be binary?
Thank you.
know?
At least then I should be extended the very same courtesy.
Yes.
Yes.
So my point is, and I'm sort of, this is becoming, I have to step back a little bit, draw you in here.
Right.
Sai,
It's rather like watching the volley in Wimbledon that we're all missing.
yeah.
Please go on.
Sai, I'm going to bring Saurabh in here to answer this actually, but when you ask that
You put
question,
the
when you
question,
ask
you
that,
answer.
when you
Yes.
ask that question,
Right.
I would in fact say, as a journalist, woman, citizen, any other identity I wear, I would deeply urge the government, media, and everyone else
Right.
to provide empirical evidence before they do any name calling
Right.
that is currently going on in our public life.
So when they launch prosecutions, which is well within their power,
Sorry?
when the government launches prosecutions with respect to certain protesters, or even journalists for that matter, who they know for a fact or they have material to believe have not exactly been true to Indian interests, are you saying that the government has no right to prosecute such people merely because they happen to be protectors of free speech and they are an exempted category such as
No,
journalists? Yes.
what I, as a journalist and a woman and a citizen,
Right.
definitely disagree with
Right.
is the right of the government to frame people in certain contexts and in certain languages, and that would be any government, and that cuts across many dispensations.
Right.
Right now, it's the center that we're discussing. Without they'll say we have this knowledge, but we don't need to put it in the public space,
Okay.
and they often do that.
Did
So
you ask
people
this question before 2014?
before 2014,
Yes.
very
Did you
much
ask this
so,
question?
very much so.
In what context?
In the context of Binayak
Did
Sen
you ask
and-
it in the context of Section 66A?
In the context of Binayak Sen. So she's saying that yeah, even they were not leftist enough for me. So I asked for Binayak Sen, who was a far leftist.
Yes.
When?
But wait, Sai, you're dragging me down
No,
specifics.
you asked
Hold
the
on.
question.
When?
Now I have.
No,
now
hold
the
on.
floodgates are open. I have
66A.
the right to respond.
I feel I should cut in on this point.
Saurabh, let
No,
me
I have
finish.
to answer this point.
Just
because
Saurabh,
since you've
before
asked
you
me
move
this-
bachao,
on,
bachao
Sorry,
mujhe.
sir,
maybe we could reframe the thing. You mentioned 66A.
Would you share with the audience what
66A,
66?
66A of the Information Technology Act was a section that permitted prosecution of material electronically propagated that had a tendency of causing annoyance between people, two people. It was misused very often, including when some statement was made against Thackeray or against various leaders. Now, and the only reason I wanted to intervene, and then I let you have it at each other,
No,
is the point that we sometimes forget that politics is the same. It doesn't matter whether it's the BJP or the Congress or party A, party B, party C.
that's very-
66A, just to remind the audience, was brought in by the Congress regime when it was part of the UPA.
Defended by the BJP.
And then, yes,
Correct.
when it is finally challenged in
Correct.
courts in 2015,
Correct.
it is defended by the BJP government.
Absolutely.
Because every government wants to suppress a citizen.
Correct.
That is what they want.
I'm so happy.
That is absolutely what they want. It is the courts. Now,
Let
we
me answer
disagree
the
on the role of
question.
the courts.
I'm happy to
It is
answer
the
the
courts
question
who have to step in to
Right.
protect the citizens.
Right.
We must have every freedom. You know, as a society, we have given up on having freedoms. We've kind of grown up in a milieu where we cede to the community, which starts from our family first, to the larger family first, all our rights. We just don't value our freedoms. We don't see them as important. We don't see them as worth fighting for. And I think we have to start that. Remember,
Because first right is freedom of speech. फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच नहीं होगा तो हम सब चूतिए ही रहेंगे क्योंकि हमको सोचना नहीं पड़ता है एंड फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच के लिए फ्रीडम ऑफ फायर आर्म्स राइट टू डिफेंड योरसेल्फ इज एब्सोल्युटली नेसेसरी वो नहीं है इसलिए फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच नहीं है फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच नहीं है इसलिए बाकियों का जो तुम रोना धोना कर रहे हो वो सब नहीं है वो ऐसे ही मैजिकली हमने राइट्स के बारे में नहीं सोचा फ्रीडम के बारे में नहीं सोचा ऐसा नहीं है
remembering that every government is every party, every politics, all authority will want to wrest your freedoms and exercise control over them because there are institutions of control.
That is the nature
We don't
of
need
power.
to go to Foucault and
Fantastic. Correct. Now, if that is the nature of power, and now I must have my turn to respond, here's the question. Prior to 2014, and when there were issues of 66A and several such provisions, when was the last time, or at least during that particular period, words such as fascist, majoritarian, anti-free speech were used in the context of the dispensation then? So I agree, the nature of power is that it's capricious, it will only seek 100% loyalty. But the funny part is, those who are expected to call out such people conveniently changed their positions before 2015 and post 2014. And I have to ask this question. If journalists have a higher degree of responsibility, or let's say higher degree of protection because they are in the business of enabling free speech, what would you say of a journalist who goes after a person who criticizes her in a suit for defamation or in criminal prosecution for pointing out the unfairness of a reportage in the context of an incident that concerns national security? And I refer specifically to the incident of Mr. Chaitanya Kunte being prosecuted by Ms. Dutt for defamation. What is your position going to be on that particular issue?
So,
Governments prosecuting people for violating the law is within their remit. We are being told that free speech is elastic when it comes to journalists. What do you make of a person who says that I have the right to prosecute this person because he's criticized me or he's defamed me? Then what is your position on that?
Sai, I'll say it absolutely categorically. And unfortunately, I've become the
I'm asking for
discussant
a
here,
concession
but
from you
I'm
now.
telling you
Yes.
categorically that I am on record, contrary to my tribe, to say that because journalists and media have so much power, I absolutely endorse and absolutely believe that the public must have recourse for defamation cases against the media.
What about
Because-
journalists against public for criticizing for their work?
And I absolutely think that right now, journalists are overstepping the line a lot.
Always.
On this case, I would say that it is wrong. I think as long as you have the right to put out any public story, anybody has the recourse. If they feel injured by your actions, they have the right to come for recourse
for the
against you.
concession. Thank you.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Thank
Why certain things become nuanced is in the past, it's been to protect journalists from large
One
corporations.
final point, and I'll leave it at that. We are not looking at stifling of free speech.
I don't get this commie zero economic sense wala argument that journalists are getting trampled by large corporations. When were journalists doing anything without the help of large corporations? ये आज NDTV आदानी के वजह से large corporation हुआ है. Statesman, Telegraph, this was not a large corporation. Coleman Bennett, Times of India चलाते हैं. हर जगह का Times उनका एक single conglomerate था. That was not a large corporation. When the fuck was large corporations not running big news media houses? I don't get.
The fact is, a voice such as mine, representing the world with that I do, wouldn't have found a space on any platform prior to 2014.
Yes.
And that is a reality that I've lived with.
Yes.
So, okay.
सीताराम गोयल का आज तक किसी ने नाम नहीं सुना है. ठीक है. सीताराम गोयल, I think, is the most unfortunate case of ostracizing and invisibilizing an author. If we get a ratio of who is how much underrated and ostracized and invisibilized in our society, and what is their capability, in that the ratio would be most significant with सीताराम गोयल. उसको कभी डिबेट नहीं किया, कभी रेस्पॉन्ड नहीं किया, कभी रिव्यू नहीं किया, कभी उसका नाम भी उच्चारण नहीं किया, उसका बुक कभी नहीं छापा कोई मेनस्ट्रीम पब्लिकेशन में, और आज बोलते फिर रहे कि हाँ लेफ्टिस्ट का ये तो भाषा चला गया, बोलने का राइट चला गया, फैशिस्ट ने ये कर दिया.
So today when someone comes and gives me these lectures and gives me the spiel on free speech, on Vad and Samvad, it's mighty convenient. Times have really changed. The Overton window has seriously changed because people did not do that before 2014.
If I may step in there again, because I feel I should. It's correct that maybe a conservative voice would not have gotten place prior to 2014. A fact which is unfortunate, a fact which is deeply troubling. But that does not mean that having got that voice, every other voice is pushed off the table.
Where is it? There has to be some evidence to
I'm
back
not
that
saying
particular
that.
statement. Where is it?
I'm not saying that
Which platform has been stifled after 2014?
I'm not saying that you are saying that. What I'm saying is we must remember as citizens that free speech is valuable because it protects all of us. And the question is, what is the content of that free speech is not something that can be judged unless it causes harm. That's a classic liberalism. It isn't very much. It's liberalism 101. Everyone should get access to free speech. Every act which harms, including defamation, needs to be curtailed. These are basic things. Sometimes we get just so carried away with the polemics of it, with the extremes, that we forget that the vast majority of people today started self-censoring, both from worry from the left or the right. And self-censorship is possibly far more worrying than governmental interference. The government really doesn't need to come in and stop you from speaking very much. The fear of what the outrage will be, both from the left and the right, that's sufficient.
My point has been that we have discovered the values of liberalism when the shoe has been on the other foot. Thank you.
I was a lawyer who challenged Section 66A. So I was against 66A, both for both parts of the government.
Sai, it's good you asked this question because as a journalist, and you can go back and look at Tehelka's history, personally, we did a cover story on 66A. very, very critical of the Congress government, and he said the same. I just want to pose one question to both of you to concede, and then let's go for dinner. You said before 2014, the liberals had a voice, conservatives didn't, and that's very fair. My question to you, and actually my anguish about this moment in our history and in our national life, is that when certain things are being articulated and new voices come, why is it such a revengeful voice? Can you not put forward positive voices, positive positions, without saying earlier we didn't have a voice, so now let's push these guys out of the frame and call them anti-national, anti-Hindu, etc., etc. You know that this vocabulary happens.
I'm so sorry. When I walk into certain institutions located out of Sonipat, I had posters actually saying, Brahmin, go back. This is the language that's been used. And these are institutions that have been posted institutions for liberalism in this country. I'm not naming that institution only out of decency. And this is a post-2014 phenomenon. This is as early as 2017, or rather as late as 2017. So when someone suddenly says that we are being edged out, or our position at the table is being taken away, I can only see that post-2014, the number of institutions which represent the worldview that you stand for have only mushroomed. They've not gone down. I haven't seen a single institution say closure sesame because of government action. It's actually mushroomed. On the contrary, I've seen more and more people releasing each other's books, despite the fact that they come from opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. So I haven't seen this. So I suspect that this is a grievance without a cause, because perhaps there is some kind of a brownie point that is sought to be scored here, that we are more liberal, look at this is a vengeful tone. Frankly speaking, I've said everything that I've said in a very composed tone only for one reason, because I stand by the position that I've taken and I don't need to raise my voice to make my point. I have never been accused of that. On the contrary, there have been instances where my pieces, even post-2014, have been returned by left-of-center publications. When I said this article needs to be called out for its inaccuracies, they said, sorry, you won't get a voice. This has happened. This is post-2014. So it's not as if suddenly you've lost the power of your veto. You've always had it. You continue to have it.
Okay, let me end on this note. I would say that the question of individual liberty and conservatism is a question that, is important to all of us. It's something we should take home with us. I would say that I cringe at the fundamentalism of the left, and I mean that, and I'm saying it on record. I would love it if on record we could all say that we cringe, or if you cringe when the right expresses itself clumsily, angrily, and with name calling. If you can say that on record, we would have arrived somewhere center. Saurabh has already conceded that
I don't relate to the right. I'm not associated with the right. I represent the Indic view. I don't speak for them.
So when the Indic view speaks in a cringy way about those who don't agree with it, do you cringe?
Let me echo Mr. Kirpal here as a person who believes in free speech and as a reasonable person. Anybody who does that is wrong. Anybody who stifles the other person's point of view or...
Okay, Kumbaya. No Name is saying, did you notice Desai Deepak came up with extremely good arguments here, but audience is clapping on his opposition many times? Yes. Did you think this audience is compromised and that can't see the moderator is biased? Yes, it was a liberal audience. तो क्या है? कभी liberal audience के सामने जाएंगे, कभी right winger audience के सामने जाएंगे. ये तो चलता ही रहेगा.
Takes away his ability to vent or her ability or their ability to vent their point of view. I do not agree with that particular position. I don't need to agree or disagree with anybody else specifically.
Or send tax officers on them.
Sorry?
Or send tax officers on them.
As long as they don't launder money.
All right. I don't think we arrived at any particular conclusion, except that what is at stake here are three things. Do the courts have the right? Is this a fundamental issue of liberty? And do others have a right to enter that conversation? I think at the very
in between which you called Desai Deepak fascist casually multiple times.
least, it's woken us up to a case that goes beyond just the community and affects all of us, because what's at stake is our ability to speak with each other. Thank you very much, Sai and Saurabh, for being here, missing your Wimbledon, and allowing this conversation. There's dinner outside, and there's drink.
Okay. So it's 3 hours 7 minutes already, guys. So let's not start the Romila Thapar Karan Thapar debate today, or should we? How many of you will stay online? Let me know. Should we do it or should we not? How long is that one? Let me check it on YouTube only. Or should we do it some other day? Let me know in the comment section, okay? Because that's pretty hilarious as well. It's 45 minutes. What should we do? We will discuss, debate, and have conversations about this. So how many of you want this to go on today? 24 online today. Next day. Okay, one is saying next day. Yeah, Desai Deepak is a big draw. I'm working, so I'm online. Madras Music is online. Okay. So let little more people. I'm having dinner while watching. Let some more people say online. Okay, Abhay is also online, or just have a conversation. Yeah, I think that idea is better. Let's just have a conversation based on the comment sections. Perhaps. Okay, even now 22 people are online. Yeah, some are going to go away because yes, Deepak was done. Yeah, let's have the Karan Thapar, Romila Thapar some other day then. Okay, let's get some sleep, Dada. Okay, then we'll do it some other day in a separate live stream so that I don't have to cut and make a different edit. Also, it will be a live stream just to discuss that only, and let's just discuss in comment section only. Let's see if we have any more comments to discuss. Everyone and their mother are holding the culture of this land as hostage using various conceptual gimmicks, rights, universalism, etc. Uh, okay. So yeah, rape victims should have relaxed rules for abortion. No, rape victims should have relaxed rules for maybe funding their birth, their health care taken care of, etc. If she's get accused of, if she accuses someone of getting raped, then. But abortion, no. You don't have dinner at 3 a.m. It's something else. He is not from India. It's 3 a.m. Get some sleep, Dada. Do it. Okay. No. Lots of people will probably leave the live stream. We are here. No, not many people will be here. We'll do it some other day. Let's see if some comments are coming. Did you notice, Jason? Yeah, ye to ho gaya. If the woman is unfit for raising a child and gets accidentally impregnated, must be able to abort for good of the child itself because it won't have a healthy life, or birth must happen sent to orphanage. Yes, or adoption. Orphanage is not necessary. Yeah, but first orphanage maybe and then adoption. But yes, good of the child ke liye abortion is never, not once a good argument, because what is good for the child is a subjective as fuck of an argument. Because many poor people have great upbringing because of their good parental situation, strong father, supportive mother, etc. Okay, and many people who are born in richer families with all facilities grow up all broken and become a weak pussy because their father was maybe sleeping around with lots of people, or mother was sleeping around with lots of people, and then they were given only money and not real love, etc. So what is really a great life and what is really a bad life for a child is an absolutely pointless conversation to have in terms of debating a reason good enough for killing a child. Tata Cholla, yeah, FN. Nino, you don't have dinner at 3 a.m. Yes, lots of people will go away. Okay, guys, it's 3 hours 11 only. Let's end the live stream today. I'm coming online on probably Monday or Tuesday. Appreciation for what you do or for choosing my suggestion and having a great conversation. Your pick. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the donation. Tata, good night. Why should the rape victim be made to go through the trouble of 9-month pregnancy when she is not in fault for it? Because the person who is going to come out of it is also not in fault. There is cases in India where a trans man and trans woman have had a baby. Yeah, I think some people have come up with this. I'm reading Integral Humanism by Mr. Upadhyay. Which Upadhyay? He came up with many good points through economic ideas, not make any sense the typical third way. Okay, then see you. We'll come back with live stream probably Monday or Tuesday. Okay, then we will do Romila Thapar, Karan Thapar, and then we will resume Brahma Puran and Bangali Itihash. Okay. So good night, guys. Thanks a lot for joining the live stream. We had a nice discussion. And Abhay, we will Dindiyal Upadhyay. Okay, and we will keep having the debate about abortion as well. I'm open to changing my mind. Did you really think there is a third way exception, capitalism to communism scale? Yes, the Arthashastra way. Women rights versus fetus issue. Women rights versus a child issue. Okay, Abhay, we'll continue this in other live streams. Okay. Good night then.